Jasvinda.
It's 8 hours.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
I'm reminding you, feed the puppies.
You are still muted, by the way.
What did you say first?
I said good morning, and then I said you are still muted.
Ah, good morning.
Or good afternoon.
Yeah, mid-afternoon.
Well, it gets dark so early now that 4 o'clock feels like early evening,
Well, we're heading for the shortest day, as you know, which will be
Yes.
22nd of December.
Very soon. Yes.
Yeah, and it's the 5th today. Plus, about 2 years ago, when we had the roof done, new tiles on the roof, we had a canopy put on this side of the house. And as this is the south-facing side, it blocks out a significant amount of light, which was silly, but it looks good from the outside. I'll just put the light on.
Hello, Glenn.
Hello.
If I recall, you're what, 1 hour past the UK? Is that right? Or are you 2 hours?
1 hour.
1 hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 5 p.m. here.
So it's already dark, right?
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Yeah, so here the days are so short that sun just came up about 15 minutes ago here.
You're at 8:15 a.m. and it's that sunrise.
Well, no, it's more like 7:45-ish. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I haven't checked in days. Heiner. How goes?
Hello, Heiner.
Just FYI, Heiner, you're appearing sideways to us.
Hello, Heiner.
What's going on with me?
Your head is pointed to my left.
Head is like this. Yeah. Hello.
And your beard is on my right. Okay.
Like this? Better?
Okay, that's better.
Now,
that's better. Right.
Now
Stay
you're
there.
upside
Stay
down.
right there.
I'm not guilty. It's my iPhone.
You probably just shake it a little bit to get the reorientation correct.
I will shake it a little bit.
Or go with figure eights. Sometimes these phone manufacturers say go with figure eights to reorient it properly. Okay, well, I have an experiment to propose today, but we'll settle into it, hopefully. Anyone in favor of a round of optional check-ins may do so at this moment.
I'll do one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll just do a little screen share, if that's okay. I have a new computer. You see, there we go.
Congratulations.
Yeah, because I was just looking at this document you created, Sam, how to make agreements.
Yep.
And I looked through that. Yeah, and it was pretty easy to understand. A lot easier than what you wrote a few years ago, for sure.
Which is, by the way, just below it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so I just added some stuff here. I didn't really see any reason to change anything or anything wrong with what was above there, but I think there was a few things that was interesting to add. So just another.
You're probably going to do it anyway, but would you summarize, since I haven't read your changes yet, would you quickly summarize the changes you made?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's exactly changes. It's maybe more like an addition or something, but well, first of all, you could have the very simple structure of an agreement. Person A says, I want to do a certain thing. And then person B says, I also want to do it. And, if they have a common understanding of what this action is, then you could already say they have an agreement to do action A. So that's a pretty simple way. Then with several people, it's all of that. And then a few things I think was worth mentioning. Given action A is understood in the same way, there now exists an agreement. If there's differences in understanding what's implied, I mean, what the action is, then we could say the agreement covers the degree to which their understanding overlaps. So this implies that an agreement requires some degree of common understanding. I mean, it's a pretty obvious thing, but it's worth mentioning because sometimes, it's not completely clear what the action is. And then it's when is it supposed to happen. So this is also pretty interesting. Degrees of how specific it is. Sometimes you make a very specific agreement. Let's talk on Saturday, that time. Other times you keep it more open-ended and maybe even deliberately. So I think it's an interesting insight that a good agreement is typically neither too specific nor too vague, but it's sort of adequately specific. Because sometimes if you try to figure out all the details beforehand, that can be a bit of a burden. Other times, if it's too vague, it just sort of becomes nothing. So there's some kind of a fine area there. That's really all I had to say about agreements in general, but I thought it was interesting to relate it to the GCC. So, for example, if we consider GCC to be a group of people interested in a better world, wishing to do something useful in service of it, and interested in using conversation as a means to enhance collective human intelligence, I think that's a pretty, reasonable view of GCC, that's certainly something we're all interested in. Collective intelligence could be understood as something that increases our collective long-term opportunities for a better world, better coexistence, more intelligent, healthy, harmonious society, doing us differently, better than before, which obviously involves also learning new behaviors and practicing it. And so that better communications, therefore, clearly is a purpose of the GCC, and it's sort of both an end and the means, in a sense, because if we learn that, we're already probably doing something better, but we're also creating opportunities for later, for collective intelligence, especially, and increased understanding. And then so that's obviously why we sort of talked about how we could call it global challenges conversations, since it's kind of what we do. So in the context of GCC, what I wanted to get to is that agreements in our context will typically be agreements about what topics to explore during a meeting, who takes the role of a moderator. The moderator may ask specific things for that meeting, certain rules of that game. Then there's maybe more general agreements about behavior and conduct. And so I ended by writing a few examples. And this I think is agreements we've already made, and it's already been written down. We bring an attitude of friendliness, openness, and curiosity to allow something generative to happen. I think it's a good description of a sort of a general attitude for how to show up at meetings. We've discussed it before. I mean, it seemed to be quite clear this was something that, there was quite a lot of consensus about. And then I found a few formulations that was from this original GCC document. Here you can see it. And And I just wrote that we will create opportunities for cooperation and interoperability between projects, platforms, and people. We will foster collaboration, develop and support connection and relationships, and create spaces to convene conversations between people and projects. There was also a list of goals. You can see opportunities, insights, resources, audiences, connecting work across disciplines.
Okay, hey Glenn.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the thought, and this is really good. I have a couple of feedback, but I did invite an optional round of check-ins, and I think you were so enthusiastic you immediately launched into some real content there.
Yeah, this was my check-in. I'm pretty much finished. The last thing I just wanted to say, we agreed that the Saturday and Sunday GCC meetings are recorded. That's another agreement. And then
Okay.
I'm finished. Yeah.
So let me make one small comment before allowing the check-ins to continue, okay? One of the specific reasons I wanted to make a short one was because I view that we could make a number of micro agreements. In other words, if you take my one first proposal, which is this thing that you just reviewed for us, and you now look at all the implications about common reference, about meeting styles, about moderation, now this begins to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's more and more to agree on before any micro agreement is quote unquote adopted or agreed upon. My approach, and I'm not saying this is right, but I'm just trying this approach and I'll get some feedback on it, okay, is if we stick with a small agreement, and the small agreement is just the one that I stated last week, which is propose something, circulate it for review, get feedback, and then let it settle, okay? If that one small agreement can be done and then quote unquote adopted, then we can have another one that says, okay, here's what that means for meetings. And then maybe that one that says, here's what that means for moderation. Here's what this means for note taking. Here's what this means for code of conduct. And each of those, I'm hoping, can be a micro agreement, because each of those could have a life of its own. Like, for example, a code of conduct conversation could take a month or two, whereas a recording conversation could take 1 day or 2 days or, less than a week, okay? So that's why I think each micro agreement, if treated on its own, and has a life of its own, has a life cycle of its own, then we can over time see what's relatively stable, right? Versus what is still very dynamic and under discussion. And that's what I'm hoping will actually be bubbling up many, many fronts of activity. Even 2 or 3, I think, would be considered many. Because what I would actually be excited by is your response to this, which I really welcome, okay, is you can see, okay, once we adopt this, here's what it means for this. Here's what it means for that. Here's what it means for the other. And I like that, right? Because I've always felt that this fundamental notion of agreement was holding us back. And that if we had something to work with, which you did, okay, then you could see that very fast progress on a number of fronts would almost immediately follow.
And has followed. That's
It has
also why
followed. In your mind, right?
Yeah.
In your mind it has. Okay, so what I'm inviting consideration of is to keep agreements small, at least for now. Okay.
Yeah,
Until
just
we have
one
a
thing
bigger
is
body.
because what I added, the examples I added there, that was actually stable agreements that we have already made. So yeah, that's
Well,
why
in your mind, they've been stable. Okay. In
Relatively.
my mind, I've been waiting for them to become stable. Okay.
relatively stable.
Yes, relatively stable. Okay. Like, for example, one thing we could probably all agree on is one agreement that we've made that's been almost rock solid stable has been GCC barn raising meetings are Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Okay. Now, the people that didn't agree with that are not here, unfortunately. Okay. So it's kind of a self selecting process. But at least within those who participate, it's been that particular time. Same with Fridays, same with Thursdays, same with Sundays. It's not just barn raising. Okay. So I would like to invite this perspective of let's treat micro agreements as very focused, atomic, in fact. Okay. And then look at another one. And, one of the very first ones you were talking about is what we do in meetings, right? Let's consider taking that, identifying it as a separate agreement. Now, I've proposed a naming agreement. Sorry, a naming convention for agreements. Okay, and that is how to, and then a brief phrase. Okay, like attend meetings, or how to show up at meetings, or how to, you know, invest in GCC, whatever that term is. Okay, dash, and then the author. Okay, so mine would read how to make agreements dash Sam, because the reason for that is I want everyone to be able to propose things, and I want people to easily see who generated it. So yes, you can look at the author, yes, you can look at whatever, but if it's in the title, then you don't have to look anywhere else. Okay?
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
a
why I
very
say,
good idea. That's a good idea.
so that way you can come up with one, I can come up with one, Jaswinder, anybody else can come up with one, is dash that name. And if it exists, then that's an opportunity for conversation. If you have one that says how to make agreements, I have one that says how to make agreements. Now we have a conversation. We lean into it. We're civil. We're friendly. We're curious, blah, blah, blah. We can hopefully work something out. We come up with something better. Maybe then that's something else, a version that we co-create together, dash Sam and Glenn, for example, that then gets, to supersede the other ones that I created and you created. I'm hoping that we can sort of watch this happen. So this is a long aside, but I wanted to respond immediately, even though we haven't really even gone into our round of check-ins yet. Okay, over. Alex has his finger up, but rather than, I mean, I'm really, okay, let me just see from a show of hands or fingers, anybody want to check in? 2 people, 3 people. Okay, good. So let's do let's do Alex, Barry, Jaswinder check-ins, and then we'll go into content. Okay. All right. Cool.
I was working out with my machine and hurt my muscle in my back. A couple of days of pain, and but I worked out an idea from my document that is a how-to, and it's how to make a dash
May I
agreement.
stop you right there? May I? Okay. If you're actually going to go into content, to me, that's not actually a check-in. Check-in is, from what I've gathered from those who are black belts at check-ins, okay, more about your emotional and physical state that could potentially allow you to become more present and more attentive. And it's less about the actual content. That's my understanding, okay? If you disagree, you're free to disagree. We don't yet have an agreement on that one. But that's my current understanding. So
What
this is my
about
comment that I made to Glenn as well. If you're ready to launch into content, then maybe identify it that way.
This section of the contents are check-in, how to do a multitasking check-in that includes not only your personal situation and the weather and the small talk, but also the reply to the previous check-in person who ramped up his check-in into an agreement, micro agreement, but dash something. You have a dash in there because some agreements are micro agreements and some agreements aren't. Some agreements are more like opt-in contracts. Over.
Okay, thanks, Alex. So another one, very quick response to you, okay? I'm having an opportunity to propose a new how-to or a new agreement, which is how to check into a meeting. Because my first response is, if you're responding to somebody else's check-in, then we're in the content discussion already. I believe that might have been Heiner.
Was
He's the only
it was he went
double session, okay? So anyway, if we're gonna have check-ins at all, then check-ins really ought to be more about how you arrive, become present, your emotional state, your physical state, your intellectual state, whatever. But if we allow the interaction with content, then we're immediately in content, which means that other people who wanted to check in aren't really in a check-in round anymore. Okay. So one rule, if we want to check in, that I'm seeing is if we want to do check-ins, don't get into content right away. You can suggest what you want to talk about briefly as a phrase, but don't go into it in detail because otherwise that sort of eliminates the opportunity for check-in for others. That's my thoughts on that. Okay. So thanks for bringing that to our attention, Alex. Are you done with your check-in? Should we go on, or do you want to continue?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Yes, I'm done. Let the others go for it. We've got
Okay,
Heiner,
thanks.
Barry, Jaswinder.
Okay, so we are now into
Have a
Barry
good
time,
weekend, Sam.
and after Barry will be Jaswinder and Heiner.
Okay, I actually have been thinking about the same things that Glenn was going over when I tuned in. And that is exactly why are we here in any of these Zoom sessions or any meeting, whether it's a meet space meeting or a Zoom meeting or a coffee clutch or a gathering. The question is, do we all understand why we're here for this period of time? What are we going to do? Are we here to play a game? Are we here to recite poetry? Are we here to have an argument? You know, are we here to review movies? We need a very high level understanding of what is it we come here to do? Do we come here to do something educational, some research, some problem solving, whatever? And I think that one of the things that I've been frustrated about when I come here, and I go, what are we supposed to be doing? What kind of a conversation are we supposed to be having? Is this a coffee clutch or an argument culture or a research culture, a problem solving culture? What is our culture? And that's what I wanted to review in my content, which I think is going to overlap a lot of Glenn's.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Jaswinder, you want to go?
This is Ranjot, 8 years old. The 3-year-old is having a party. And there's some kids here, so I'm expecting lots of interruptions. I apologize in advance. So that's my check-in done. Everything is good. Oh,
Okay.
and Barry,
Is there a birthday party going on? I noticed
their
that one's
birthday
very...
party. The birthday girl is in the big room. And Barry,
I hope you all are
some of us
practicing
don't have
safety
anything else
practices.
to do on a Saturday afternoon.
Obviously.
Auf Wiedersehen.
But you like except for cake. Cake is dumb.
And
Popcorn
let's
is
take an
better
opportunity to welcome Colin and Tyra.
I'm complete.
Hello.
Okay, thanks, Jaswinder. Okay, next would be, by the way, Colin and Tyra, we're in a round of check-in still. The only people who have not yet gone are Heiner and the two of you. And
Okay. I'm Heiner, as always, in Berlin and elsewhere. I feel emotionally, also through my attention, a little bit spread. Since we have this virus, I'm even more in so many, I feel, important issues that I just wanted to tell you, I leave again in half an hour, and I feel or resonate very much with Barry. Sometimes we need to focus, sometimes we need to pan, and then we need to zoom. And these sessions here for hours, I just cannot manage, and I have to make sure I will go out of internet for some time to do urgent things which are waiting. No, just one positive thing. I had 1 hour, 1.5 hours with Fleming Funch last night, and we are again meeting this night to really go a few things like what I would consider barn raising going on. For example, with my magic roundtables and gifting. All this, we just talk, and make another list and have another assumption or what I would like to do as a micro or macro agreement. Over.
Thank you, Heiner. Okay, Colin and Tyra, would you guys want to land here? Do an optional check-in.
I'll go.
Great.
Is Colin there? Good morning. I'm Tyra. I'm in Pasadena, California, and I just woke up, so I'm a little fuzzy. But happy to see you guys. Hi, Sam.
Hey, I only woke up about 8 minutes before you.
Yeah, you look so much better than me.
Not true at all. Anything else for your entrance, Tyra? Okay. Colin, you have the option to join at any time. So if you're being silent, then I'll just say you're being silent, but I'll give you a 3-second window here to start your check-in.
Yeah, Colin here from Canada, and please go ahead.
Okay. Then I'll finish the round of check-ins by saying, I don't know how many weeks it's been that I felt like I've had very little free time. So this past week, I actually almost did nothing. I feel almost guilty about that. But anyway, taking time off can also add stress. I haven't figured out how to get complete rid of that, but that's just a minor personal thing. What else? I think I'll leave it at that for now. Oh, just one more thing. And that is, I'm actually very happy that Glenn started the way he did, which is, hey, I like the initial proposed agreement, how to, and he started just riffing on it and building on top of it. That's what I was hoping that would invite. So I'm really generally very happy about that one. I would also say, in apologies in advance, perhaps, that if we go and have those direction conversations today, that might again appear dry. I mean, Kayla shared with me last week that she was kind of bored last week with that discussion, and other people can feel that way as well when we get really, really down into these nitty gritty things. But to me, they're so foundational that it's necessary. And I'm hoping that we can find our way out of it soon once we have these grounding, foundational, axiomatic agreements. So that's my personal preference. So we're going into content now. I noticed that Glenn has his finger up.
Sure. Yeah, I wanted to just respond a little to that question Barry asked, because I think it's a question that's been asked many, many times, and it's a very big question. Why are we here? And it was touched upon last week that is perhaps a good way to do a check-in, to say why I am here. But what I wanted to say in response to that is that it could be said, this is my interpretation, that there is one common theme is this theme of collective intelligence, using conversation as a means of enhancing our collective intelligence. So that's one interpretation of what these meetings in general are about, which might be pretty good. It's pretty vague, but it is what it is. So that's one thing. But in terms of more specific, why are we here? And in terms of focus, I really should mention that this was also a big topic of conversation for a long time. And then we came up with this model where in each meeting, a certain person would present something or moderate or play a game or have something prepared, and then they would define the rules, so to say. And so that means that the specific reason, the specific answer to why are we here would change one meeting at a time. And at the end of the meeting, Sam typically asked this question: did we achieve focus? And it was almost always the majority answering yes. And I believe in the last 3 or 4 times, I think 100% answered yes to that question. So clearly, that method has proven itself to work to achieve focus in the GCC barn racing meetings. And it is the meetings that don't have, this structure that have sometimes tended to float away into some kind of a meta level, something that I also find a little bit tiresome. But other times it can be interesting. So, but there certainly is a risk that it all floats out into something very vague and not necessarily even interesting. So obviously there is an antidote to that that's been tested, and it's basically just that it's a somewhat different purpose every time. Yeah.
May I go next? Anybody burning to respond to that? Okay. Alex, did you want to go before me? I do.
That's a burning thing I've got here about reading to requests urgently or putting them on the back burner because they're part of some other conversation. It's like having a priority on the focus of the group's issues that they're dealing with, whether it be barn raising or unblocking, you know. So that's just the thing there, that the idea that when one person can get some other person in the group to focus on one specific issue, then the magic happens, because you come up, either you make an agreement or you opt out. Something happens, and that's action. So that's good. Over.
Okay. So I do have a response to that as part of my larger response to Barry and to Glenn. So let me go on. This could take about 2 or 3 minutes, maybe longer. I haven't yet measured it in my mind. Okay, and that is, Barry, in response to your question, in my mind, in my vision, is a burning, very large sun. Okay, that's what I have in view always in here about why I'm here. Okay, and it does ground in the very first motivation of why we're here. Now, some of you are going to hear my next couple of minutes and say, oh, geez, I've heard this all before. But that's because it's always up here for me. Okay, and that is this. Okay, the GCC, these conversations were formed as a direct response to the Global Challenges Foundation request for proposal on what would be really innovative new forms of global governance. Now, in considering that, our proposal that we sent in, and the people that pushed the submit button were Tammy Lee Meyer and myself, but there were various other people involved in authoring this, okay? Some of you in this room. But basically the essence of the proposal was we need to figure out how to get the best from everyone so that we can co-create the best decision or action or plan from everyone. That was the key. We didn't say we knew how. We said we need to hear and learn how to do this, which is why I have formulated my definition of collective intelligence, which is if you add someone to a group, then that group's product or decision or action or plan should at least not get any worse, and ideally should get better. Okay, that's the degree to which I hold collective intelligence firmly in my view, my head. Okay, if you don't know how to do that, if you add somebody and that person detracts or defocuses or takes up all the time or doesn't understand or blah, 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 whatever, okay, that can be seen as a collective intelligence degradation if the end decision or product or plan or action is not better than it was without that person. That is my strict definition of collective intelligence. I'm not saying it's everyone else's, that's mine. Okay? So we're here because of those essential pillars in my mind that say, how can we learn what collective intelligence is so that we can actually practice it, embrace it, extend it in order to come up with global governance models. That's what I see here, okay? And I'm here doing it because there's been a diffusion of focus, both DEF as well as DIF, I view, okay, in some other conversations I've been in, okay? So that's why I really want to hold that particular vision for myself. That's why I am here. Okay, and you're the unfortunate victims because I made a commitment a long time ago that I ain't quitting this. Okay, no matter how hard it gets, no matter who dislikes this and finds it unpleasant or finds me, exercising asshole types of behaviors, whatever. Okay, I will learn from those if you reflect that back at me. but I'm committed to these pillars of what GCC means to me. Now, in order to get there, we have not had universal understanding of terms, agreements on conduct, agreements on language, agreements on agreements. We've had, numerous triggers that have defocused and diffused us. Okay, so we've had to work through all of that. And after 3 years, keep in mind, by the way, if you look at the draft of the how-to for how to make agreements, I drafted that way back in 2017. And we started these conversations in October of 2017, and by December, I already had a draft of essentially this idea. Okay, but it's taken us 3 years for that initial signal of an idea to get even some semblance of engagement and perhaps even adoption. So yes, that can be viewed as slow progress, but we've covered a lot of ground in those 3 years. Those of you that have stuck with it understand what a huge amount of ground we've covered, from experiments to people to deep dive to distractions to triggers to topics to tools to practices. It's all been of wide variety. So those of you that have not been here for that entire 3 years maybe don't have the perspective that I do, which is why I take every opportunity when it's necessary to restate the reason I'm here. And it may have taken a little bit too long. For that, I apologize, but I feel kind of strongly about this, that we really are headed in a direction. And when I refer to that there is an arc to these conversations, that's what I'm talking about. There's an arc that goes through collective intelligence that ends up somewhere near global governance. And that arc, we've barely taken step 1 on, because we've not ever agreed on basic agreements. And certain words that are tried take people out into left field, right field, arguments, whatever. Okay, we've learned how to deal with that. We've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. But those of you who may not have that context may say, yeah, why the bleep are we here? Okay, in which case I actually commend you for not understanding that and still showing up. Okay, sorry for the long rant. I'm going to shut up now.
And the arc goes towards something very big. I mean, that's also part of the issue. I mean, if we're aiming towards global governance, that's an enormous big goal. So 3 years is maybe a short time, if we keep that in mind.
Thank you, Glenn. That stimulated one more thing, and I'm going to jump in here. And that is that we're trying something that's, I feel, a bit different. Okay. In other words, if there's 1,000 different actions all oriented at giving people clean water. In fact, I actually don't believe there are 1,000. Okay, but let's just say that. Okay, then what am I, as one individual, going to do to progress that particular need? Okay, it's basically a drop in the bucket, literally. Okay. Same thing with deforestation. Same thing with human trafficking. Same thing with crimes against nature, climate change, class strife, all of these things. What am I going to do? It's that literal proverbial drop in a bucket. We're trying to figure out, though, is there a lever that we can actually push on that could make a difference? And for me, that's, how does collective intelligence successfully scale? And that's why I continually lean into this question, because I believe this, if we understand it, could accelerate all of those others. And now, if there's other people, if there's 1,000 people already doing this, then maybe I'm wasting my time. But see, I do see that there are people in organizational design or conversation science or whole body meaning or nonviolent communication or blah, 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 blah. There's all of that. But none of them are focused on my very, very tight definition of what collective intelligence means to me. And so it will draw from all of those bodies of knowledge, in my opinion. But this very tight focus, which is, if I take a group that seems to be functioning well, and I add a person to that group, the key metrics need to go up or stay stable, but they should not go down. If they go down, that proves to me that that group does not understand collective intelligence and how to practice it. And we are still proving that we don't understand collective intelligence and how to practice it. And I think that's a hump that we need to get over, in my view. So thanks for stimulating that additional thought, Glenn. Hey, Kayla. Welcome, Kayla.
One little question. The issue of measurement, is that a part of this too? Maybe we're making progress, but we just can't measure it. Or we can't measure what progress is at all because of the complexity of what we're doing. How does that fit in?
I have a very good response in my view. Okay, a very specific response, but let me let Jaswinder go in first.
Well, first thing I would ask Glenn is that in the formation of questions, that particular question, are you missing something? You've had 3 years and you've had some pretty hairy moments and a continuation of trying to make some agreements. And we've learned a tremendous amount about learning. And we've learned a tremendous amount about how to phrase things. And moreover, because we are coming from multicultural societies and from the world over, we are actually generating something that may seem a little fuzzy, but collective intelligence. Now, I'm one of the few people here who does make suggestions very strongly, and I'm one of the few people here who tends to be forthright with what I think we are missing out on or doing too much of. And it's the same old topics. We keep doing the same things again, like children. And
I'm going to
leave it at that.
Rudely interrupt.
But it is measurable.
I'm going to rudely interrupt. I'm going to rudely interrupt because I very much dislike that
Go ahead.
Theme. It's an old theme. It's a tired theme. It's a negative theme. It's not a positive theme. It's not a constructive theme. And what are you trying to accomplish by stating it that way? And since there's been no agreement about interruptions yet, okay, I'm going to interrupt and ask that question.
You have to unmute Jaswinder.
If a person is being negative, and then the person that, in this case, me, comes back to him and says, this is the way to positiveness, am I pointing out his negativeness or not? Does it help to
point out? Are you talking about a specific case?
Say again?
Are you talking about me or are you talking about Colin?
Glenn.
You're talking about Glenn?
Yeah, he brought up the question.
Okay, now I've lost context.
Right, the context is this. You, Sam, said that what we're doing here is measurable. The progress
I have not said that. I have not said that.
I don't think you said that.
Misunderstood. I did not say that.
I said it was maybe immeasurable.
There you are. I'm complete.
Okay. I really wanted to respond to that, okay? Because, okay, Colin's got his hand up and Alex has his hand up.
Go ahead, Sam. I'm just going to say the same thing I've always said, which you could probably guess, but go ahead. You got something burning.
Alex, you want to go?
Yes, there's 2 ways to measure whether or not something is achievable or measurable. And in mathematics, one of them always gives you an excellent, accurate result. The other method never does. It's full of uncertainty and complexity. So it's a moot point, really, when you say something's measurable or not measurable. And the results of our collaboration are definitely measurable as far as I can assess. Not with mathematics, but just with my own personal memories of the conversations that have taken place so far.
Okay, so thanks for stating that. I will have to broadly myself disagree. But let me go back to Glenn's point and then come back to your point, okay? Glenn, I do think that what we discuss as how we measure is a very important, probably even the more crucial point of these conversations. Because, okay, let me go back to another practice I'm very familiar with, okay, which is reflected in software, okay, which is known as start with the success conditions, like how do you know you're done? But it's also in human success, quote unquote, practices like Stephen Covey, which is begin with the end in mind, okay? And otherwise, people say, okay, what path are you on, okay? You're going towards some sort of path, that is measurable. So all of these to me are the same theme, which is where do you want to go and how do you know when you're there, okay? Which is itself an important conversation. If I say I'm going to go towards collective intelligence and if I don't tell you what I mean by collective intelligence, then you have your own version. Tyra's got hers, Janice has got his, somebody else has got theirs, and now we think we're collaborating, but we're not really, are we? You're thinking about, oh, well, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but somebody could be saying, well, collective intelligence is listening to everybody. Okay. To me, that's not collective intelligence. To somebody else, collective intelligence is, coming up with the most effective plan, the quickest possible way. And, so that you're under budget, that's somebody else's plan. Somebody else's plan could be, let's make sure everybody is as happy as possible. That's how we know we're succeeding. Okay. You notice there's a wide variety that are potentially lurking in there to really just dump you into an abyss of misunderstanding if we're not clear about this thing, which is, by the way, plug, why I think something like Dictopedia is so critical, is to eliminate those chasms, those gaps that you might drop into. And underneath all of this, to me, is yet again, one of my foundational themes is I believe in stuff which doesn't let me down. If stuff disappoints me over and over and over, I'm less likely to embrace it in my life. Now, if some people, and I'm going to do the Colin thing now, okay, embrace certain religions and that brings joy, success, happiness to them, it works for them. I'm not going to criticize that. But if my practice, my understanding of it, of what prayer means, says, oh, I want the accurate NSX for Christmas this year, Santa, please give it to me. And if I make that prayer and it doesn't happen, it's never happened in any previous Christmas, okay? And I'm just extrapolating here. Then am I likely to embrace that practice in my life if it's going to disappoint me again? No, this is how I make the decision. This, along with Occam's razor, is how I decide, what I'm going to be doing personally. Over. Tyra.
So this is, I think, maybe off subject to what you're specifically talking about here, Sam, and I hope you don't mind. But I wanted to share with you guys what some action I've taken as a direct response to being a part of GCC and having that sense of we're all one planet, we're all in this together. And having talked to people around the world recently, I really feel connected. And so I shared this with you and Sam and with Kayla that my friend Francis, who some of you got to hear on Facebook at a Zoom session, who's in Uganda. And then I have another friend who is in Ghana. And so what I wanted to do was try to work directly with them because they are feeling the effects of unemployment due to COVID and the lack of tourism. And so I tasked each one of them with trying to find local artists within their communities that make something that represents their community. And so in Uganda, I am in the process of ordering 10 baskets made by a tribe who is displaced out of the gorilla forests. And this indigenous tribe, in order to make money, make baskets, and they're quite beautiful. So I've ordered 10 of those. And then in Ghana, I ordered 10 necklaces and bracelets that were made by a local woman there who's a nurse, but is also out of work. So to me, that is this working, because now I haven't received the baskets yet. I'm still, it was a great exercise for me to send money that had to be changed to a different type of currency in each country's. I've sent them the money, and now I have to just put it in the hands of the universe and hope that I receive the goods. But it's been really awesome. And I'm not going to make a profit off of these. If I break even, that will be fantastic. But it was more the exercise of being supportive of artists around the world and taking action to try to do something. So I just wanted to share that with you, because to me, that is the GCC. And that is how it's manifesting in my life. And if I do receive the baskets, which I have no indication that I won't, I have trust in both of these men, just unconditional trust. And so Sam, I just want to put that out there, that this is the action that I've taken. And then if the goods do show up, I'll share them with you, and you can always buy them. So with that, I'm complete.
So may I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Are you saying that if you had not been attending GCC meetings, that these actions you've taken with these international artists may not have happened?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. If I weren't attending these meetings, I wouldn't have gained the confidence to reach out to people across the globe, to reach out and say, hey, do you want to do this with me? So yeah, absolutely. Had I not been attending these meetings, I would still be just sitting in my little bungalow in Pasadena, California, looking out the window at my neighbors who, oh, Sam, I just saw your dog walk in the room, and I thought it was a dog walking in my room. I was like, where'd that other dog? That was funny. Anyway, yeah, any other questions on that? And Sam, in the beginning, has offered to donate money towards that investment of goods, which was great.
Committed.
Yeah, so that's been really, and I'll take you up on that soon. Okay. With
Hey,
that,
thanks a lot for sharing that story. I really appreciate you sharing that story. Jazz.
Just a reminder, and for Barry's benefit, the GCC isn't just the Saturday meeting. That's just one aspect of it. The whole 4 meetings is the GCC. I'm complete.
Actually, I think the GC is more than just those 4 meetings. Yeah. Glenn.
Certainly hope so.
Glenn, then Colin.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really interesting thing that just came up. Also, this question, measurement. Sam asks this question: what does success look like? I mean, it's a very classical question to ask, and it was suggested that, well, you kind of feel it if it's going well. Maybe that's a very good question to really go into sometime. I mean, what would real success look like? But then, of course, the example Tyra shared is an example of that if one of us gets inspired to do something which we wouldn't otherwise have been inspired to do, and we feel that enriches our lives, then we already can see that there's a direct benefit from the meetings. And for me, I mean, these meetings have been like a touchstone for a lot of ideas that I've been very interested in. And it's given a lot of new content to those ideas. And so you can say that there's a whole body of ideas that have continued developing and getting fuel from these meetings, sometimes more than other times. So what I think is interesting here is that the benefit, the answer to why are we here, it might not immediately be obvious. So it might not be what we expect. And I think that's fine. I really think we have to just get to grips with that, whatever this is, the benefit is probably not going to be what we expect it to be. It's probably going to be dispersed across different areas, and some of them easier to notice than others. And there's obviously relationships that can be formed. You get to know people. You also get a certain training in expressing yourself. You get kind of used to being in a Zoom room, and that whole thing has its own life, right? And there's a lot of other areas in society where you have to join Zoom meetings, and so obviously there's a certain skill that's developed there. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Just very quickly, there's an analogy in my mind, okay? If you take a relatively large functioning quote unquote organization, okay, that has a charter, it's got a board of directors, and it's got, a C-level staff, it's got departments, and it's got, different other teams within departments and projects in between them. You could be going down 4, 5, 6, 7 different levels, attending a meeting, and have no clue what the large organization was supposed to do. Right? If you don't have those connections, if you don't have that structure understood, we're not a large organization. We're not even an organization. But in my mind, in order to achieve that big burning star that I've got in my mind, we've had to go a number of different routes. We've had to go to a number of different alleys, take a number of different detours. And so some of those, in fact, this one could be considered a detour. So if you attend this one, yeah, it may look like nothing having to do with this vision I've got for why I'm here. But I connect the dots in my own mind. That's why it makes sense to me. And without that context, then you're either here as what? It's something that just fills the time, or you like the social aspect of it, or you like the fact that you like to hear people argue, maybe it's entertaining, whatever, okay? But without that context, yeah, you're right. It's not going to be the same reason why I'm here, which is why I'm taking the opportunity to explain it for myself, okay? Let me just tell you one more boring story, okay? I used to work at Siebel Systems for about 7 years. And Tom Siebel was the CEO for that entire 7 years. And I joined when there were about 230 people. By the time I left, there were 8,000 people. He had quarterly all hands meetings, okay? And one practice he would do every all hands meeting, okay, was to state why he was there, and that it was the privilege of a lifetime to create the opportunity and to work with the people around him. He had essentially a 2 or 3 minute monologue that he always delivered at the beginning of every all hands meeting. Why did he do that? Because we were growing 100% per year for at least 5 years, if not 6. 100%. in staff as well as in actual top line revenue. That's actually seen by very few companies.
It's
that
9
I'm aware
hours.
of, okay, very few companies can sustain that for 5 years. And so he wanted to set that culture you're talking about, Barry, that you're referencing, of why he's there, about what the company does and how the company does it. Okay. Now there are lots to admire about Siebel. There's lots to not admire about Siebel. Regardless, he understood the importance of delivering that vision message and that culture message. And that's why he did it. So on occasion, when people say, hey, I don't know why we're here, or it's just the same old conversation over and over, or we're not accomplishing anything, or why are you here? That's when I say, oh, that's a signal to me to at least restate my purpose for being here. I'm not saying it's anybody else's purpose, but that's my purpose. That's what focuses me. And that's what gets me up every morning on a Saturday instead of sleeping in, because I made the commitment that I'm still doing this no matter what happens until I die or I learn better. Okay. All right. Thanks for letting me say that. Over. Hey, just for the note, we've not heard from Kayla. So, Kayla, are you still lurking? And if not, then let's go Colin, then Jaswinder.
Success. I'll come back to that. Just 1 second. I do apologize.
Colin, did you want to go?
I was still just waiting for Kayla. I didn't know if she was coming. And then Jazz spoke up. So anyway, yeah, that's one thing. I do remember back at the beginning mentioning, I had my hand up and I said, you could go first if you had a burning thing. And then 20, sort of like I feel like I'm in line at the grocery store. You got something quick you want to take to the cash. I say, oh, go ahead of me. And all of a sudden I'm ejected from line. That's the feeling, if you get my drift. So, so if we could manage the queue a little better, I'm trying not to interrupt unnecessarily, and everything's been really cool. So it's not a burning thing. So it's not a big issue really. It's just being able to.
Okay, so apologize if that was my oversight.
No. If it was important, it's up to me to fight for it, right? So, and that comes to another thing, like we're kind of here for coexistence. For me, I've picked that up off of Sam. I used to be after all for one, one for all, but there is no common man. So I realized if there is no common man, then we're down to the coexistence game. And in as much it should be, if there's not going to be one common way, then there should be a way that all ways can be heard. And that means non-secular to me, for what's worth to anybody else. That means the space is non-secular, not the individuals in the space. Everybody can enter the space. How do you deal with violent people in the space? That's another thing. Rule 0, I call it. I don't think violence should be rewarded, and we should be able to. And when it's really bad, like when they were bombing the Zoom sessions, we just kicked the people out, and they weren't even members anyway. But what do you do with a member who turns violent due to a brain aneurysm or something, or somebody who joins the group and they think they're being sincerely helping, but they're really not helping because they're just too violent? So how do you even define violence? That's a big thing to me. And I'll give you an example. When interrupting, when everybody's leaning into the conversation and enjoying what's being heard, like a lecture or something, and the person says, interrupt me if you have any questions, and then they start giving the lecture. So they're expecting to be interrupted in a way that it's sort of like active listening. So they could either be interrupting to understand something that they don't understand. Now, sometimes that the slow kid in the class falls behind, but the teacher tries to keep the slow kid up to pace. So it kind of slows down the rest of the class while everybody gets up to speed and understanding what's being said. So that how to understand, that's an interruption. Another one is to challenge something that you don't believe is true, and somebody's laying a bunch of points on, and they're going to take the logic to a place where you're presupposing what they just said is true. And that can be very nitpicky. And I think that's only important if the person is proposing something as power over or advice for the world at large. If it's their personal preferences and they want to share it with us, that's great. Even if this is one of the things I think has been a big conflict, people misunderstanding me with the idea that I've been accused by a few people, Jazz specifically, recently, a couple times, of expecting things to be my way, or if it doesn't pass the way I want it to be, then it's no good. And I realize that's just a criticism of what he's hearing, but it's quite the contrary. It's just a matter of respecting the time that we have, so that if you have something big to say, then maybe you want a whole Saturday, like Telenola, or meditative practices, or the effects of psilocybin with what was his name? I heard some people. Glenn knows who he is. The mushroom man there.
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin, but the Frank McKenna? No, not Frank McKenna.
Terrence McKenna.
Yeah, there's a whole world of woo in there that I think is actually something that's been around for thousands of years, and I don't know anything about it, but our last political and legal systems or whatever have really made it so we can't understand that stuff. I find that's quite an offense to what's possible.
And that is violence. That is violence.
That's a cognitive violence.
That's real violence.
What I'm doing to you right now, which is blocking. They were blocking. So if that results in violence, and that was the thing that I wanted to bring up, the other kind of interruption. So you got the kind of understand, the kind of challenge a claim. Everybody's welcome to make their claims, but be prepared to be challenged if it's of importance. If it's not, then the people in the group could say, hey, let's not belabor that point. That's not so important. Or can you take that somewhere else? And the guy might say, well, why is it not important? If you just say because you're stupid, that's not really an answer. So, you got to tell them why they're out of line in order to be satisfied and be quiet and go away, or accept, or agree to disagree. Disagree better, I guess, is, you can put it under that column. So when you can't disagree better, then you get into this next stage of conversation where you interrupt by blocking. And that's what I experienced at the end of Sunday's call. And we all do it to each other at times. So I'm not really trying to say somebody's so much out of line as we're not respecting each other. In the sense that if I try to say something and somebody talks at the same time, Sam and I have done it, Josh and I have done it, Glenn and I have done it, Alex and I have done it, Barry and I have done it. I haven't done it with Tyra or Kayla. So everybody does it. I think immediately when somebody starts to talk over somebody else in a blocking way, that they're blocking them from talking. They're not interrupting for understanding. They're not interrupting to challenge. They're just interrupting so you can't speak. That's called blocking. And to me, that's violence. And I don't think we should accept that in this group. That's a proposal. So, we could all have our little bee on the end of a popsicle stick. And when somebody starts to block somebody, it's just not helpful. It's just emotion. It's arrogance. It's just nasty. And it's not what I would think it would be something we'd have a hard time agreeing on. That's the kind of interruption that really kills. And there's all kinds of other things. And I like to say, Tyra, you're the kind lady, the type of kind lady who, on my second job, I thought I was going to make it rich. So I started making macrame bracelets, right? Because I thought it was really cool. So I took them down to the farm market in the parking garage somewhere down in my hometown, and I put them all out on a cardboard sign, $5 each. And one lady stopped and bought one, and it made me feel so good. So, that's what that story reminded me of. So thanks for that. And
Thanks, Colin.
There's some other stuff there, but I'll leave it for another time.
Thanks, Colin. I believe Jaswinder, if he's back, was up on deck.
I just wanted to say a quick little ditty about this word success. Success isn't what is being put out by the media and by people, and especially in the marketing field. Each and every subject, topic, occupation has a different success. Family raising, whatever we do, whatever endeavor it is, there is a different success for it. You cannot measure it by one standard, which is the standard that's being put out. If you're rich, you're success. No, you can be poor and be successful. Whatever it is that you want desire, if you reach the level you want to be at, you have been successful, me included, obviously.
So let me just add an amendment to that. Alex, I know your finger's up, but when I talked about having the end in mind, I was talking about how we know we're done with something, okay? And some people view it as success. Some people view it as criteria. Some people view it as test conditions. Some people view it as, certain metrics, etc. Okay? So my implied understanding was whatever you're talking about has its own set of what done means, which is a way to agree with you, okay? Alex.
Holding my finger up like this has given me some levels of success in communicating and collaborology, because it's a technique that removes the need to interrupt somebody verbally violently by blocking their conversation with words immediately without using the finger and waiting your turn. Just being patient and being in the now, being present is a big part of it, because I've got a shocking tendency to drift off into my own mind while somebody else is speaking, and then I come back into the conversation having missed quite a bit, and people think I'm sidetracking or diverting the conversation away from the topic. So focus and using that simple finger raising method, as you see Jaswinder doing now, is how I avoid and have some success with barn raising. Over.
Thanks, Alex. Jaswinder, you're up.
The word violence there tickled me slightly. One man's violence is possibly another man's tickle. I'm fairly good on absorbing pain, so it's nobody here really has been violent. Nobody here really has done any kind of bullying. Nobody lodged a complaint to that extent. Therefore, it doesn't exist. We've been warm. I don't think we've even hit the orange hotspot, never mind the red or the white. We're nowhere near any of that. We're overreacting. Where do these overreactions come from? What do we hope to achieve with these overly landish adjectives that we pick up from the media? We're building mountains out of tiny little molehills. Why? I'm simply...
Well, yeah, I really like that because there seems to be sometimes that we can create and have succeeded in creating a space of a certain quality of attention and a certain interest in understanding what we bring and a certain, civility and respect. And that in that kind of a space, if somebody does interrupt, you don't have to assume that they're trying to block you. You don't have to bring in that whole thing that's definitely being channeled through the media. And I think that's, kind of what we can do here. We can create a certain space where there is a quality of attention and a quality of civility and respect and an interest in just understanding ourselves and each other, where we can really just sidestep a lot of that stuff. And, we actually may not even have to deal with it while we're here. So, when somebody does interrupt, we can assume that it's a good intention. It can also be a very good idea if we have a symbol for having a question. But let's be honest, some of us speak too long. I'm one of them. Colin's one of them. Sometimes we can interrupt by asking a brief question, and that's going to, benefit whatever is happening. That's not blocking, right? And it should be entirely possible to have a space where we can do that, and we can just sort of sidestep all this other stuff and not have to worry about it.
Thanks, Glenn. I wanted to get a chance to address Jaswinder's notion about there not being violence here. Okay, if one is talking, and this is why Dictopedia is so crucial. Okay, because what's violence to one is definitely different. It could be catastrophic to someone, and it could be mice nuts to somebody else. Okay, and in fact, I might have been offensive right now just using the word mice nuts. So let me at least introduce a notion of what violence is in a context that I learned by really studying a topic called crucial conversations. And crucial conversations are defined in that particular context as conversations that have three elements: high disagreement, high emotions, and high stakes. If the stakes are low, doesn't really matter. If the emotions are calm, not a crucial conversation. If there's not a lot of disagreement, not a crucial conversation. But if all three are present, that's when your rational mind gets trapped and your amygdala goes haywire and your lizard brain goes into its own mode. So the notion of violence in crucial conversations is when safety is threatened. Now, no matter how rational you are, we all have this 13 or whatever billion years of evolution that's led us to being the way we are, right? So there are elements that actually have us triggered on a number of fronts, even if our frontal cortex is not aware of it. So in that context, violence is defined as elimination or degradation or minimization of safety. If people are safe, they don't feel like they have to defend themselves. They don't have to feel like they have to constantly have their walls up or their armor up. Then you can actually be constantly interacting in what's this pool of meaning, this world of ideas, this whole space of concepts and things. But if you're actually not feeling safe, you're going to withdraw. You may not speak. You may have to feel like you're defending yourself. You may feel like you have to interrupt when something's being said that threatens you. So there's this expanded notion of this word called violence. And whereas nobody, I would agree with Jaswinder, nobody's actually, hit me with a stick in GCC. There are other ways in which people's safety has been, let's say, tarnished. And it's on both sides, okay? It's on the supposed perpetrator as well as on the supposed victim. I believe, and I'm going to state this for Jaswinder, Jaswinder feels like a strong person where anything I say will not actually hurt him. Okay? Not everyone is like that. Some people's emotional construct says, hey, if I get interrupted 17 times a row, I'm not going to like it. I'm possibly in that category. Okay? I think that is a real indication that somebody just doesn't want to hear from me. And that's what is not, quote unquote, safe then for me to speak in that context. So if you expand the notion of safety to say the willingness and the degree and the depth and the, joy with which somebody can interact, with others, then violence is anything that minimizes or detracts from that. And I think that's where, and I don't know NVC as well as I should, but I believe Barry has mentioned it before. Nonviolent communications is probably a similar notion there. And so I think that is a form of violence that I would invite people here to consider. Over. Glenn, and then, don't be a dick, okay? So Glenn and then Colin, okay?
Yeah, I'll try to be a little brief. I think I have an example. I mean, because I've been following a lot of the political discussion around the elections and stuff. And a lot of the dynamics I see on social media there is perhaps what you could call violent communication, in the sense that it's quite clear that the purpose of many of the communications is just to make another person seem ridiculous and make their point of view seem ridiculous. And the possibility we have, and I think mostly we practice it here, is to create a different kind of space where that whole way of thinking is thrown out the window, where we assume that there's value in what we bring. We choose to be generous if in doubt. And these basic things, they change everything, especially if we can practice it. And then, for example, I mean, you always feel when somebody says something, maybe there's something missing, etc. There's something that could be added, something that could be improved. Then you could ask a question, you could add something. But it just seems that it really comes down to this issue of, are we trying to make each other better, or are we playing some kind of game of, you know, trying to make someone else look ridiculous? I think for us here, it's pretty obvious what the answer is. But it's also pretty obvious that a lot of what's happening on social media, including, you know, high-level political discussions, is taking place within a frame of mind where the main purpose of a lot of the communications is to make somebody else seem like an idiot. And I think this is a substantial difference. It's a totally different paradigm. Where, you know, if you really have the point of view that a human being is a dynamic, complex creature that has a dignity in themselves and they have unknown potentials, etc., then that opens a whole new way of relating, a whole new mode of interaction. And I think we don't have to touch that stuff that they're doing in social media. We don't have to do that stuff. It's stupid. It's been recognized as stupid many, many times. It has to do with tribalism. It has to do with categories that by design try to put two groups up against each other, creating false dichotomies and sucker's choice. It's a whole ecosystem out there. We're all influenced by it, and it's a load of bullshit. And we all know it here, and we don't have to play that game. We can play a totally different game. And most of the time, we are.
Just a very quick retort, if I may. Do apologize. I do sincerely apologize. This is extremely important. Glenn, I'm very, very grateful to you for bringing up all of that. Saves me doing it. All those definitions that are out there and we are trying to import into here are way, way out of date. Those were set by the ruling classes for control of the likes of us. Today, we can read and write and reason a little bit, I hope. And it's time to re-examine each and every one's definition and setting. If we don't like it, we don't have to have it. If it needs modifying, we should modify it. Filibustering, as you're aware, to bring up one example. Procrastination, as you're aware, is another example. Acting the victim and having a tantrum is another example. How many of these are out there multiple times, plus others? Are we going to keep entertaining them? Or is somebody going to say to them, cut it out, or continue till you reach a plateau where you can agree at whatever level? Then you're achieving something. And that is the level that the GCC is currently reaching. We reached that yesterday. something or other with Dougie. I'm complete.
Alex has his hand up, but then who did I else? It was Jez, and then Tyra, and then me. Okay.
No, I was after Glenn, but
Colin, I think was.
I was after
also-
Jazz, but I got
Yeah.
kicked out of the shopping line.
Well, I left for a little while, so I lost track. Okay, so who is it again? It's
Okay.
Glenn talked,
Alex.
and then Jazz talked.
I think it's Colin now, maybe.
Yeah, I never got a
Alex.
chance to do that.
Alex, you said Alex.
okay. So I have Colin, Jazz, Alex, Tyra, Sam. A lot of people lined up on deck.
Yeah. Who goes first?
Okay, so can we all make it brief? Colin, you're next.
Okay, yeah. So another thing I was going to say, I got off on the types of interruptions just to bring up the violent kind called blocking. So I wrote that, violence is when you're using these tactics as a weapon, as opposed to understanding. I'm saying the good kind of interruptions are meant for sincere gaining of understanding. And I think that is the goal for coexistence. So back to coexistence. So for coexistence, I think you need understanding and a lot of other things. The ability to understand, for example. Also, you need kindness, right? Because without kindness, you're going to be back to this violence bullshit again. And I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but anybody who enjoys poking at somebody and piling on, they're also probably a sports fan and a boxing fan, and they just don't realize it that not everybody they come across is a boxer. So maybe you should respect other people, right? Yes, you should, Jazz. You like to provoke, you know it, but let's not go there. And actually,
And I'll tell you that those adjectives you just put in there, boxing fan, sports fan, etc.,
yeah.
are a misnomer. They don't fit.
Well, I'm just saying it's people who are aggressive. That's all, as opposed to
I'm
painful.
not aggressive. I'm the most peaceable person you'll ever find. I've stopped more fights than anybody I know, and I don't start them either.
Well, I don't know. The thing is you don't actually need to touch somebody to sexually violate them. So anyway,
I don't know what violence is.
violate, I said. So anyway, please don't interrupt me. And again, unless necessary, for understanding or to challenge me, which I guess you're doing. So I guess it's short and
I'm
cool.
not challenging you. You're just challenging me by bringing
Hey.
up that word.
Colin, can you please just make your points, please?
Well, this kind of is the meta point we're experiencing right now. But the deal is that I agree with Sam's point about safety, and the absence of safety can be caused by violence. And if somebody does enjoy, now I'm saying verbal violence here, but it's still violence all the same because it removes safety. I do agree with that, and it's for everybody. And I can take it. I got a thick skin. Don't worry about me. I just find it infuriating. So anyway, and it's not helpful. So in the after shows, one time I was talking with Jazz and Stacy was there, and I had a long quest to understand what Jazz meant about a post he posted. And I won't get into the details because it always juts off into another conversation. So I asked if it was okay if I asked him about that. And he said it was, and he was doing his and I like the way Jazz is jovial and interact. So don't get me wrong. It's just when it gets nasty, it's not so good anymore. And I don't feel like he's being friendly. And I don't feel he's being kind. And I feel, to me, it's like verbal violence. And it brings it out in me as well, which I don't like. And I'm not blaming him. That's my choice. I could always just hang up and go away, right? I'm back another day. So the deal is that during this show, when there's so many people, I think we do have to respect a little bit more than we would, say, in an after show or one-on-one. But that's just my opinion. But I think the base level is not to ignore when somebody's actually what I define blocking somebody else from speaking in a violent way. It's almost like we need to have like a bell ring, like Pavlov's dog, so that we just stop and realize what we're doing. Take 5 seconds or 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever, and regroup. Because if there's a question or a topic at hand, I think that's what we should be talking about, as opposed to using violent tactics to weaponize speech. That's what it feels like. And
Okay.
I don't know what the timeout's about. If you would like to go ahead, that's fine. I'm done.
Well, I know it's a lot of people are stacked up, and we're just trying to make sure that people make their points and then allow others to make their points. So Jazz is next.
I have nothing to say at this one. Thank you, Sam.
Okay, then the next one in my list is Alex.
Okay, we've got some people that are in the framework of my world and online and offline, is that some of them are out there doing it, being sustainable or regenerating stuff, being responsible in reducing their energy footprint, their carbon footprint, and there's getting other people involved in the community, and they're out there doing it is this phrase I hear a lot. Now, I don't get out much, and I do get involved in my local community, but I spend too much time on the computer at home. But in that sense, I'm online doing it. I'm sort of out there doing it on the internet. So that's one way of looking at it. And it's not a matter of who's right or wrong. When Colin and Jaswinder are having a go at it, that sort of drives people away, pushes people away from the conversation, because neither of them are willing to give way. And when they do, it's usually for surreptitious reasons. It's modus operandi happening there. Over.
Thanks, Alex. Tyra, you are next.
It would be understanding bad.
Tyra is next, please.
Yeah, just an interruption. Just
hey,
quick.
Please, Colin.
I'm just
You
interrupting.
had a long time to speak already.
Yeah, but this is what I'm talking about. If you have something important to add in active listening, I would just say with what Alex said, it was an example of understanding badly. Sorry, thank you. Go ahead.
So I just want to share what it's like from my perspective to be a part of this group. And I know going in, I get my feelings hurt really easily. And that's my issue. And I know coming in, that's my stuff. And I've had my feelings hurt in this group by how someone communicated with me. And I had to just leave the room because it made me cry. And now I had to spend several hours taking a look at why did that upset me so much? And it wasn't really the person, the person who upset me or hurt my feelings was just being them. And I realized later that what was going on was a real Gertrude moment. It was one of those, and again, here are our 4 meetings working in my life. I was able to take Gertrude's method and kind of break it down. Why did this bother me so much? And it's my shit. It's my own baggage that I bring into the room. And I guess I'm just sharing that with you because if things are upsetting us in this room, I mean, really, it's worth your self-examination of what is my baggage coming into this? Like, why does this keep happening? Or now, if I was getting my feelings hurt every week by people because they were being a dick or just, then I won't come back. I just won't. I have other people in my life that I have a different type of communication with that doesn't hurt my feelings. So just want to throw that out there, that I know coming in that some people can be a bit gruff or even kind of mean in their presentation, but it's how I react to it is what counts. And I can be the biggest asshole on the planet, and I can be very mean and very cutting. And I try to bring my higher self to the table and leave that nastiness behind, that judgment, that ego. I try to set it aside and just listen and try to understand, especially in a group of men. And I have to say, you guys communicate very differently than a group of women. I find that you guys get stuck a lot in words, semantics, outcome. And I find the women don't typically do that. The women might have a goal, but they're much more interested in the journey of getting there. They're kind of doing the hunter-gatherer thing, whereas the men are in there with their, spears trying to catch dinner. It's very different. And I love being in a group with men. I really love it. And it also, it gives me confidence to be able to communicate with a group of men and listen to them, especially with all of you tech guys. Oftentimes you're discussing things that I have no idea what you're talking about, and that's okay. It's the way in which you're communicating with each other and with me that is important and sustaining. And the skills I learn in listening and also dealing with my hurt feelings when somebody's just being themselves. And that has been a huge growth experience. And I tend to be the person that runs away. Somebody hurts my feelings, I'm out of there. I don't come back. And that's not okay, because now I'm running away in fear rather than standing trying to understand the entire process. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I try to bring kindness and understanding, first and foremost for myself. If I'm coming from a place of kindness and understanding, I'm a nicer person. And Glenn, I really resonated with what you said about the political climate. And I spent the first 2 years of Trump's presidency violently attacking other people verbally on Facebook. And it did not feel good. I was not a happy lady. And I didn't like it. And I didn't change anybody's opinion. And so that was a valuable, valuable lesson. How do we stand up for what we believe in a way that can be heard, that can be digested, that can be shared in a positive way? And if I'm coming from a place of ego and judgment and I know more than you do, I walk away with a stomach ache. It physically affects me almost immediately. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And I do feel very safe with all of you. Very, very, very safe. I feel that if I had a serious problem, I could contact any one of you, every single one of you. And I know that you would be there for me. I feel that in my heart. Even when I get my feelings hurt, it's okay. I feel like a sister in the room with a bunch of brothers. And sometimes a brother might rub my fur the wrong way, but I know that that person still cares about me in the end. With that, I'm complete.
Thank you, Tara. Welcome, Josh. And I think I'm on deck. So I wanted to address this one point that I think follows from the safety and violence conversation that we had earlier. That is, sorry, my puppies are getting a little bit loud. Hey, Ronnie, can you help with the puppies?
Hey.
Okay, so the point is this. Glenn said something about basically this environment, that we could all presume a level of safety. And while that may be true, I actually don't think it's true. But even if it were true, that if my focus is on how we scale successfully collective intelligence, then every addition brings people with different culture, different practices, different notions of what safety is, different conversational practices, et cetera, et cetera. In the absence of a code of conduct which is a form of agreement, on how we try to provide the best kind of safety for everyone to participate so that we get the best possible decision or plan or outcome or action or whatever, and at the same time make it at least pleasant, if not actually enjoyable, for people to be here. I think we do need eventually to come up with those codes of conduct, which again, I will stress, is not to arm a army of policemen to say, oh, well, if you're not this way, then we're going to do something to you. Okay. No, it's a way that we can recommend some practices so we maximize the safety, optimize the outcome, optimize the experience. And as we scale, the confidence by which we could presume this level of safety is going to diminish over time. It's just the law of numbers. Which is why it's all the more important to really make these explicit understandings. They'll be imperfect, they'll be improvable. But having something, in my understanding, is better than having nothing, because having nothing just makes us susceptible to everyone saying, what have you been doing here for 3 years? How come you haven't achieved anything? How come there's nothing written down that'll guide me? How come I can't look at anything? This sort of stuff, okay? So the ability to share is this group memory that I keep coming back to. Without group memory, we are only a collection of individual memories, and that is very susceptible to individual subjective interpretation and, oh, by the way, memory accuracy, which is poor in most cases, okay? I'll admit that for myself, okay? So I will say that it's actually me doing a service to you for me to be able to write things down so that I don't incorrectly recall it then sometime in the future. And that's why I write things down, okay? But it's also this notion of scaling being so important. Even if we assume safety now, we cannot quite so well assume safety if we're thinking about growing. Over.
Yeah, can I respond to that?
Yeah, Glenn?
I think this is really interesting. Yeah, and thanks to Tyra for what you shared, because I think we're at the heart of the matter. And then how can it be scaled? So what if, let's imagine that a group of us learn the skill of being respectful towards all people, knowing that we don't know them fully, that they have a whole story we're not aware of, so that the initial attitude is one of curiosity and just kind of decency, just general the ability to be respectful. That's one side of it. Then somebody else says something that ruffles my feathers. Can happen. Some are more emotional than others. And can I then develop the ability to choose to not assume bad intentions on the other person, which I felt was what Tyra did, what you said, had a reaction, but you didn't assume that they meant it that way, like they were just being them, right? That's another different way of interpreting it. And then you said, why did I react this way? So that it's this interest. It's an interest in why did I react this way? And this interest transforms the situation because somebody else said something that I reacted to, and now I'm interested. Why did I react this way? And suddenly, because of that interest, there's a possibility now for growth, for for learning something. So this is my what if question. What if a certain number of people develop the skill of genuinely being respectful towards other people, and they don't assume the worst when their feathers are ruffled? They see their own reactions as an opportunity to learn something, which again makes that interaction valuable, even if the other person is a jerk. Suddenly, even if they really are a jerk, whatever that means, it's still valuable. If I don't take it personally, and this is what Sam's talked about, we could have like a rule in these meetings to not take things personally. And I think that's true. And I agree, it's a part of a new paradigm. You don't deliberately try to disrespect somebody else, and you don't assume that somebody else is trying to disrespect you. If in doubt, you choose to be generous and assume the best and treat it as an opportunity. That doesn't remove that, I might have a strong reaction. Maybe I even want to cry, whatever. But that's not the point. It's you don't assume the evil intention. Maybe you don't assume anything. Maybe that's really where we want to go, to a point where we don't assume anything about other people. But maybe we're interested in learning. And I wonder if you have, and I think here I'm getting to the question Sam asked, if we assume that a group of people learn these skills, then those skills have a capability of transforming situations where you may meet pretty difficult people, but maybe the whole dynamic can be changed. And maybe that is scalable if that skill set is developed.
Thank you, Glenn. Tyra.
Thank you, Glenn. You really brought that together. What if we act as if this group is a success? What if we just come in every day saying, this is working, instead of saying, this isn't working? Why isn't this working? Blah, blah, blah. We're still here. And you've been here for 3 years. Clearly something's working. Otherwise, this band of misfit toys would have broken up a long time ago. So what if we all come in and say, today, this group is working because we are showing up, we're being kind to each other, we're being curious, we are able to have discussions and banters back and forth. To me, that's working. And to feel like it's not working because you don't have a product or even data, to me is just sidelining the whole thing, because you're looking in the past. Why haven't we gotten this? We've been doing all this stuff for all these years. Well, okay, great. Let's just go with what we have right now. And right now, today, in this moment, this group is working, in my opinion. So maybe we can just put a different set of glasses on and say, here we are. This is working. Let's step into the pool and see where we swim today together. I'm complete.
Thank you, Tyra.
Yes. It's working.
Deep breath, and then Colin.
Sam is wise. There's no question. Yeah, as far as it is working, you just have to have context to say what we is working. I can't qualify. I completely agree with that last statement, but I do agree with the fact that we can all grow and try to understand what the we is and how we can agree and disagree better, and whether we need to have Google Translate because we're going to grow to scale. So if I was talking in Japanese right now, would you be able to understand me? If you put on your English translate, then you might be able to hear me and understand me. So we're not there yet. But yeah, the we is many things. And I think managing to keep the space open and have a time, I think is a big measure of some kind of success. And I see it as a space where Sam has brought a couple of things together which are quite magical. One is the idea of coexistence. And I think you need understanding for that. So I'm a stickler on understanding the facts and claims. It's just, of things that are projected to the world. If important, hopefully not splitting hairs. Like with what Tyra said, that's great. If she feels that way, I don't have that, because the sense of why I'm here is the meta game, which I think is the coexistence game. And that has not been, I haven't seen the end goal yet to say that it's been finished or done, as Sam would say. I think we're just beginning to be able to learn to have friendly conversations with people who may or may not be your friends for the purpose of coexisting. And I think everybody here is a friendly type person. And some people here, I've actually made some friends. Other people, just acquaintances, because, it's the way the world goes. So I agreed with everything that was said up until Glenn said, which was like 15, 20 minutes into the show, even more. I think I agreed with most everything that was said. And I said, this is great to align that way. And then Glenn said something about it being boring. And I was thinking, I just wanted to interrupt and say, well, you mean boring for you. It might not be boring for me. And so that's back to that we question again, or the I and what we bring and what this space is. So to me, it's a space to learn better conversation, because understanding is needed to coexist. And I think if you don't have kindness, you're just going to be refer to Tyra and her sign. And it's up for me to raise the fact that I think that I've been treated unfairly, or I felt unsafe, or whatever, because there are no rules for the group to do it. But I think we could understand, like Glenn was saying, how respect is so important, that maybe you might change the way your personality is a little bit to fit in better. And the mirror is pointing to me as well. And so I think it is important to choose your words carefully in the way you come up to a conversation. I'd like to ask Barry, have I lost him yet? And there's Josh. Take the stage, Josh. I'm halfway through, but you haven't said anything and I want to hear from you. Kindness, decency, I'm out. Go ahead, Josh.
For the record, just window was indicating some timeout symbol.
Yeah, it's very kind of Colin to put in 10 minutes for time allotted for chatting or talking. And what he said there could have been said in about 20 words. I think that's overly much. Colin does like to make up these rules and things and put them forward, and he doesn't pay heed to them himself. Barry's been pointing out he's bored. Nobody's listening to him. So I wonder how Barry feels, and I'll give way now. Thank you.
Barry, did you want to speak, or shall we welcome Josh's check-in?
I'd rather hear from Josh. And I've already written what I was going to say anyway.
That's not to say everybody's read it.
That's why it's asynchronous. I can't listen in real time. People talk faster than I can process, so it goes past me. If I write in the chat, it doesn't matter that you didn't see it when I wrote it. You can read it 10 minutes later, it's still there.
That's the thing about having written words. Oh my God. We're asynchronous. Okay, Josh, you want to go ahead?
I'm just saying hello, and I was listening to Glenn. Sorry, my heart just opened up. I started laughing this morning. I'm like, Glenn, you're saying everything in the 4 agreements organically from your heart and your soul coming out. And it's just so beautiful. And I just got on the call, but I'm just hearing everyone say, hey, you know what? We're all doing amazing. We're all awesome. And so, yeah, how, like, let's go somewhere. I don't know. I just feel like everyone's pretty much in sync. That's what I'm hearing today. I don't know if I'm mistaken, but with that, I'm just happy to finally get on a barn raising call and hear that. So that's my check-in. Thank you, guys.
We can all meet at Sam's house after COVID. There's an open invitation, I do believe.
There is an open invitation. Yes, there is. Although, by the way, for the record, I'm not sure I'm going to be here past July 1. I'm still fighting like heck to try and be here and stay here past July 1. So up until then, the invitation is safe. Beyond that, it's a little iffy right now. Okay. Anyway. Hey,
Anyway, shouldn't we hear a little from Barry? Because I think he had a lot of things he wanted to say. I mean,
also,
maybe...
just for signaling purposes, do you mind? Alex's hand is raised in the digital thing. So I just wanted to make sure that that either goes down or if Alex has something to say. I just keep seeing that every time. Oh, thank you.
And for the record, I actually, in my version of the Mac Zoom app, I can't see hands go up or down. Where are they? Oh, geez, it's so tiny. There it is. Jeez, okay, all right. Now I know where it is. All right. I mean, on Windows, I was able to see it easier for some reason. Anyway, Alex, you want to say something? No? Okay. Barry, you're invited by Glenn, but anyone else? Because we are close to the top of the hour. So after Josh goes, I might see if anybody wants to check out or decide to continue. I'll leave this open.
If you want to know what I would have said had I been able to get a word in edgewise, it's in the chat. Save the chat before Sam closes out the thing, and then you can go back and read it at your leisure, and you can read it faster or slower than the rate at which I wrote it, which is why I like the written word, because it solves the problem of it doesn't have to be synchronous. Synchronous spoken word just doesn't work for me. It turns out, I found out, that I talk faster than people can listen. And also, people talk faster than I can listen. So I might hear one sentence or two and say, ooh, I want to pause and think about that. Maybe I don't understand that sentence. But in the meantime, 3 more sentences have come and gone, and I've lost them. So it's an art to have a spoken conversation where people stay in sync. And my observation, and it's kind of an impression because I don't have scientific data, is that a lot of times one person, maybe me, is talking and the other people have stopped listening. In which case, that's why I write it. I see Jazz wants to respond.
I just want to put an addendum to that one, is that if a person has genuinely one item that is a misdemeanor or should be approached, and then whatever baggage that person is carrying, it tends to be, or whatever associations are there, tends to be, well, while I'm here, I'll put that out as well. And you're quite right. The one point that should have been discussed gets overwhelmed and buried with junk. And we shouldn't do that. It's immature. I'm complete.
Josh?
Yeah, I'm just gonna and one of what Joss Winter just said. There's so much awesomeness going on in the world right now. I am like, my mind gets blown on the hour. It used to be every once a week, and now it's on the hour. The protein folding from AlphaGo with Google is really all over the web. But more than that, it was a 50-year problem that they're like, they haven't solved it, but they're so close, and it's just so exciting and what it means for the world to change. And that's just one of 10 other things I could say that my mind has been blown about that is world changing, whether it be the information sending from Pluto 5 years ago and them analyzing it for 5 years and what they're finding out about Pluto's dual system with Charon, these 2 planets, and the implications of the James Webb telescope that's been supposed to be launched since 2007, and it just passed its last test. So that's super exciting. And of course, I'm talking some science and computer science, but the M1 chip just came out, and now everyone's talking about the MX chip, which is the next chip to be released in January. which is supposed to be even faster than the one that's blowing everybody away, which is a completely different type of chip, the ARM chip. And things are just really exciting, meaning we're starting to make some breakthroughs where we can all work together. And let's do that here in barn raising. We got superpowers. Josh Winder's got 2 thumb superpowers. Tyra's got art. I will owl. Love her forever.
One small comment as a result of that. It's amazing what can bubble to the surface when not 100% of our media is talking about Trump. Okay? It's amazing
Yes.
what else can actually impinge upon our
I heard
awareness.
that name before somewhere. Wasn't he something to do with America? I might be wrong.
What about America?
Trump.
A lot of good stuff happened in America, which is not Trump.
Not done yet. It's looking hopeful, but it ain't done yet.
I want to hear more of these revolutionary developments, though. I'd like to see more of that in the news.
These cell phones are faster than PCs and laptops now. You know, that's what Josh was saying. Apple Silicon has done some amazing work over the last 10 years or whatever.
And the spatial web is becoming a real possibility. Maybe soon we will have a 3-dimensional web that we can fly through.
Could I just interject a question there? A real possibility for what exactly?
Who coined the word cyberspace?
No idea.
A real possibility for a better
Engelbart.
informational
Not
ecology. A better informational
Anyway, can I
ecology.
invite some round of check-ins before we go into the casual, unmoderated, stuff?
Check out would be better at this stage.
Check out.
I want to
Well, that
stay.
was my checkout, so I'm
I
done.
wanna
Go ahead.
go. That's my checkout.
Okay, well, just so you guys know, every Saturday at noon Pacific time, I have my meeting with my ex-wife just to finalize all my divorce details. So I have to go into these preparations for that session. So that's why I can't necessarily stay long after barn raising sessions anymore. And that's why sometimes if this session is still going at about 11:59 a.m. on PT, sometimes I will just have to cut it off because I'm using my Zoom session for that. So apologize in advance for that. Second, the James Webb Space Telescope, one of my very first projects at TRW when I graduated college way back 4 decades ago was to work on something called SOGS, the Science Operations Ground Station. That was the ground station for the Space Telescope. And when we figured out just how many gigabytes and now terabytes it come down per second, from that instrument. And by the way, there's 9 instruments on the original version of it, and they're all have to be scheduled, minutely, and you have to figure out all these orbital celestial mechanics things. You have to look at storage problems. That was a fascinating first project, one of the first projects out of college. It was really fun. I got to visit the actual, location, the Goddard Space Flight Center, where they eventually put it initially. I don't even know if it's still there, but I think that was where the original location was. But it was really fascinating to work on that. And now to see the James Webb set of instruments, now going up there, man, that's like, we thought that was just going to be in the 80s, but now it's like 40 years later. Anyway, really enjoy this. By the way, I just want to remember Glenn's enthusiasm at the beginning of this session for actually saying, hey, now that we have this beginnings of a framework for agreements, here's what else can all happen. That's what, I get energized by, okay? And I'm working that way. I'm going to be writing more stuff up. I'm going to be sharing stuff. My only advice, again, going back to that first point is I'm going to look small, okay? I'm going to look micro agreements, not big ones, okay? Small ones, okay? So that's what I'm going to be focused right now. So that's my checkout. I'll let this go till noon. I may pop in and out, but I'm going to be, looking for paperwork to discuss for my upcoming divorce activities, okay? Thank you all.
For us outsiders, how long is noon? How many hours?
2 hours from now, approximately.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Sam.
Tyra and Josh.
Okay.
What's that?
I saw that Alex had his hand up. Alex, do you want to go before me?
All right, I'll be brief. The part of the GCC event that happened in my part of the world was this idea of a solar farm hemp hemp field, and it's small to begin with, just like the nano agreement, a tiny plot of hemp growing next to a small array of solar panels with one tractor and and a humpy to live in. So that's sort of like a project that's attracting interest from the investors who are looking to pour money into sustainability efforts and projects like that and create jobs. Anyway, that's it. I told you I'd be brief, so that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
So Jazz I think it was you, Jazz, that said, what are we doing with this new technology? Like, we have it, what are we doing? And one of the things that I just loved in the last couple of weeks, as I shared about buying things in Africa, is the fact that I can just send it like that. I mean, within minutes, I can send money to Africa and they receive it on their phones. And to me, that is incredible. And it just shows like just how small our planet is. It's that kind of stuff that really, really excites me, that I can be a part of someone's life and have exchanges that are just immediate. So I just wanted to share that kind of stuff just is so exciting.
I just want to put in there something that's tremendously valuable to you and me. Is prior to coronavirus, it used to take 4 days. Since coronavirus and the Banks Act having been changed, especially in the UK, it is now down to minutes and sometimes just a few hours. So that's a tremendous change. Yes, you're absolutely right. So the technology is, in my humble opinion, being at long last being used in the service of humanity, rather than the service of the greedy few.
Billionaires.
Complete.
Trillionaires. Josh?
Yeah, the trillionaires, the billions and the trillions. Yes, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Josh, then Colin?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I was always hoping for was the ability to just instantly log onto a call with clarity and have video and voice. And the fact that that's come along this last 4 years, I was on join.me, which was a iteration, it's a company out of Boston that worked with a company in Santa Barbara, where I'm from. The guy who invented the technology would talk my ear off at the tech meetings all the time about his technology. And I was like, okay, Dr. Klaus, thank you. You're interesting, but we'll see if your technology ever works. And now it's iterated all the way to Zoom, and it keeps iterating, meaning they're compressing our conversation constantly, getting it better, putting encryptions on. So what the technology lets us do, I think, if we think of low tech and high tech together, so a basic thing that we want to do, and then utilize the tools that we have to do it, the only thing that's limiting us right now is our imagination. And especially I run a web development company, and I overwhelm all my clients because they're like, can you do this? And every time they ask the word, can you, I say, yes, I can. Can you pay for the thing that you want to be done? And they say, well, how much is it? And so it's comes down to time and money. But with time and money decreasing, it opens up more and more possibilities. So what I can do on my iPhone today is not what I could do on my iPhone 4 years ago or 10 years ago. And things that are easier to do with less money, for example, if all of our energy comes from, let's just say it comes from the sun and gravity, two places that are pretty relatively cheap, it allows a whole continent of Africa, a whole continent of India, a whole entire continent between Europe and China to have a railroad go through it, and everyone along the railroad to be able to stop and get goods and services. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I'm excited about the possibilities. I don't want to sit and talk about how people are going to be greedy and rude and not help each other as much as how we are going to help each other, because the technology will only work if we work. And I really feel that we can get caught up like we have here in barn raising with the technologies, But the real technology is the human technology that people hear. And that's what I heard when I came on the call today, is us acknowledging our own human technologies, each other's individual abilities to listen and understand each other. And the more we do that, either utilizing the tools like we're doing here on Zoom, the more possibility that we have of collaborating our dreams to come true, and literally our dreams. Like if we can dream it, we can iterate it, we can plan it, we can make it happen. And we don't have to collaborate necessarily as much as be able to share what we've done and ask someone else, hey, do you think you could do it better? Cool. Can I help show you what I did? Sure. Okay, and then just pass the baton, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't think there's enough baton passing as much as give it to me, give it to me. And if you're doing a relay race and you're running up with the baton and there's 4 people to hand it to, it's going to slow down the race. And I think that's kind of what we're doing here, is we're about to pass a baton, but we're trying to find out who we're passing it to. And that's okay, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think if we're aware of that, then we'll get there wherever there may be, collectively or individually. But it's just a fun journey, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm rambling now again. So let's enjoy the journey. I think that's the one thing, the one technology we could do is enjoy the beauty that has been created, will be created, and is in the moment at the present. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
You're definitely on to something. I'm sure you heard about Peter Diamandis. You know about him? Yeah. And, it's so much in the direction of what you speak about. He has written a book that's called Abundance. The Future is Better Than You Think. And he describes this abundance mentality that is, a possibility for us. And then an abundance mentality can include the mentality that all people in the world have an abundance of wisdom and great ideas and genius. It's a new way of thinking about what a person is, because you don't just think of them through one lens. You think of them through the whole field of possibility that exists, all of the different layers of the person, all of the different possibilities of how they can learn and grow and develop and share their gifts in a certain context, etc. So what I've noticed is there's this old stuff which we've touched upon, tribalism, the left and the right, all of this stuff. It's this incredibly constrained way of thinking where you want to pigeonhole people and then you want to tell them why they're idiots. It's so stupid that it's almost ridiculous when I even mention it. And at the same time, it's a habit that's proliferating. Take it easy, Jaswinder. I'm not.
How does anybody know that that person is an idiot?
They don't, and that's the point
Well,
I'm getting
they're not
to.
an idiot. How dare you?
The point I'm getting to is that
No. The
this
point
is
you're getting at is that we want to help people, and saying somebody is an idiot. I'll point out what Sam said earlier about being negative, and then somebody's negative, then I'm negative to try and point that out.
Can become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It has a medical meaning, which we
I got the context. I got the context he was using it in.
We're not letting people speak.
Well, look here. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple.
Now,
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy if you say that's an idiot, I'm an idiot, but I'm not. I'm going away from that. I'm moving in a different direction. You see, that's bullshit, and we all know it's bullshit. That's the tribalism. That's putting people into categories. The truth is, we don't know who we are, we don't know who they are, and we don't know what's possible. That's the point. And that's what Josh was talking
Well, the
about.
point is, if you're going to be helping somebody, and the first thing you use is the word idiot, you're getting the heckles up, all yours.
Exactly. So I'm not doing that. I'm just commenting that is a pattern that is proliferating through our popular culture, and we need to get away from that towards a different view of people as dynamic individuals with enormous possibilities.
Much better. Lovely
Yes,
word.
that's a lot better, and we can
Yeah.
do it. And we can use our technology that way.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Glenn, if I
I'm finished. Go
jump
for
in.
it.
Okay. Being of service to each other in a way of asking, how can I help you get your own understanding understood? Just asking that question of, where are you individually? How can I help you? Can you ask some questions? Can anyone in the room answer those questions in a way that they feel that they've been clearly asked and understood? And being of service to each other is the only agreement I'd like to make here in the barn raising. Is, are we of service to each other and helping each other grow on individual paths? I see Josh Winder shaking his head.
I'd like Zoom to.
I'd like to go next because I've had my hand up for a while.
You already said I was after Josh, and that was 10 minutes ago. And then Glenn, then
There's so many people speaking that I've lost track.
Yeah, well, the thing is Josh did go, and I wanted to segue after Josh, but Glenn was just so full of it, and I said, you know what, let him go. He's on a roll. But I felt like I was segueing from Josh too, so I felt like it was a missed opportunity for me, but it was an opportunity for Glenn because Josh did such a good job at setting the ball up. You could just knock it right out of the park. So, you know, and I was supposed to be next, but I still left, and my microphone was on, and nobody heard me say anything negative because I didn't say anything. So that's patient.
How can we be of service to you, Colin?
So yes, what you said, Josh, was perfect, and it was one layer abstract from what I was going to say. And you were saying it's about being of service to each other, and all those beautiful things you said I won't repeat. Glenn doubly repeated them in his way. I won't repeat it. What I'm saying is one layer down from that is where we already are at. And I'm just trying to point out places where we're already at. And I even get pushback on that. So, you know, something's wrong when I'm that confused. So we're at the place where we're making proposals. We're at the place where if you make a proposal and after 6 days, if nobody says anything about it, it's just kind of adopted. And then if it becomes a problem, then someone's going to say something about it, right? So I think that's a pretty good thing. I have 2 proposals in from that meeting pretty well on that day when I did the mind map. And I don't really think we've gone anywhere since then. And maybe some things, you know, serendipity granted. But so, yeah, I'm kind of focusing on the proposals, and that proposals are folding in to where I could be challenged. I could be making claims, and I want to be challenged. And that's kind of what I was trying to do with Barry, what you were saying. You know, I was saying, Barry, can you help me with what I've got? But Barry didn't hear me ask that question. So, you know, it's right off the bat, it's so important. Now, maybe Barry heard it, maybe he didn't, but what happened was not what I had expected to happen. Got together with Sam one day on a one-on-one. And I said to Sam, I said, well, I'd like to discuss something, but what would you like to discuss? And I thought maybe we'd discuss both things. No, we just discussed jazz the whole time. It was a waste. And I told him at the end, I said, you know, like Jazz says, this could have been said in 20 minutes. And it's not really to Jazz's, you know, nobody's coming, the cops aren't coming for Jazz. You know what I mean? It's just that this difficulty between us is just an issue that we don't want to have. So that took up the whole call. And I told him it was a regret because I had some things I wanted to talk about with video mining and stuff, right? So anyway, there's a lot of need to get more specific. And the one layer down with these proposals is, why don't we put them in Trello? It's like, you know, at least it's somewhere. I thought we already made that agreement. At least the intention's written down there. And if you want to put a date like 2 weeks, a sprint, then go ahead. If you want to bump the date at the end, but at least it's a place. And there's many other places that we could meet, but I really like Trello because it's got enough detail without being too complex in my mind. So I just put it there. Let's keep going forward with the proposals and respecting each other, other suggestions. And I think we'll go a lot farther than, not doing that.
Is it my turn? Okay, thanks, Colin. Just for the record, Trello was proposed as an action item tracking system. I actually believe, in my opinion, that it's not the greatest place for the corpus of collected group knowledge, but that's a separate conversation, okay? The point that I really wanted to address is Josh's message about let's just be in service to each other. That is beautiful. That is actually what we all ought to be doing. I am, in addition to that, asking another question. In other words, why does that not work? If we're all feeling so generous, if we're all feeling so curious, why has that still not yet produced the society that we want? I cannot prove, but I can lean towards an insight, which is in the lack of transparency, money and power and influence can be corrupted and abused by those who act in the shadows. That sounds like a conspiracy theorist, but in fact, we all know that the billions and trillions are actually, all being concentrated in the hands of fewer and fewer and fewer people around the world. And their lack of transparency is almost absolute. So despite what the good feelings and goodwill is of 99.999% of the world, okay, I still think systemically it can be abused, and it can therefore produce a very unfair system if we don't actually do more to bring about more fairness so that the world's resources, the influences, the goods, the food, the energy, the materials, the science, the wisdom, the insights can be beneficial to more and more people. And I think that, to me, is a systemic question on top of all the good practices that we're already doing. Now, because I think that the only way to expose that is through some radical transparency, I do understand that from a personal standpoint, there's reasons for privacy, there's reasons for not being completely transparent. But in order to model the transparency and to not be a hypocrite, I want to bring as much transparency as possible to what we do. And that's why, that influences my position on recordings, it influences my position on learning from mistakes, it influences my position on having shared group memory, it influences my position on not deleting anything that's ever happened. Deletion is hiding, okay? And if I really want to bring about transparency so we can shine the light on those 147 or whatever number of people there are that are essentially pulling strings behind the scenes, then I don't want to be a hypocrite on the way there. And we need to figure out how to get that transparency. It is a long haul. It is not a matter of one election or one country or anything. This is a massive undertaking that I believe is going to take decades. And the first step, in my opinion, is to restore the respect for truth and facts. That's where I really rail and I recoil at people saying, well, that's just my truth. No, that's your experience. Don't talk about truth in that way. Truth actually needs to be a much more respected and respectable concept so that we can restore journalism, we can restore science, we can restore education, we can restore critical thinking, we can restore academic research, we can restore exploration. All of which goes out the window when we allow the word truth to be undermined. So that is my checkout, okay? I sort of started at the beginning, responding to why are we here? This is essentially a real crucial step for how we get there, in my opinion. So that's my checkout. Thanks.
Before you go,
yeah.
this few days
Josh
ago,
had his
I
hand up
brought
also.
up, and last week I brought up this question of openness as well, but not in so many words. And one of the things that was said 3 years ago and then repeated subsequently was that Doug said that the GCC is all inclusive. And to my mind, in the two conversations between Sam and Doug repeated that, and it was not challenged. Therefore,
I did challenge that.
I assumed in the two exchanges that I was witness to, and I wanted to be, it wasn't. And therefore, I assumed that that was to be taken as one of our conditions. Now, of late, about 3 months ago, it was challenged by you in a private conversation, and I since then had to change my settings that it may not be so, and sometime or other, we're going to have to clarify that position of yours.
Okay, so since you bring up my statement, I am on record as early as late 2017 as saying that while that is a apple pie kind of statement about, including everyone,
yeah,
my statement has never been quite so broad.
Right.
In other words, I have always been very clear that I am not using this absolute inclusion of 100% of everybody as my driving principle. Now, what we do will affect and hopefully benefit all peoples on the planet. But that doesn't mean we have to have all 8 billion here in this kind of a discussion. In fact, that's very impractical. We have not learned how to do that. Eventually, if we get smart with regard to collective intelligence, we may get there, but we're not there today. That's why I've not held that very strongly. Over. Josh?
Are you saying we will not actively exclude, but people may exclude themselves?
People have been excluding themselves. I can't control that.
Exactly. Yeah. So as far as you're concerned then, and this is the clarity for me, if a person is, to our way of thinking, a little bit undesirable, we will not exclude that person.
I think it is important to lean into that to understand why that discomfort exists.
Thank you. That's good enough for me.
Josh?
Yeah, I keep going back to a paper that you wrote a few years back and even years before that about collaborology. And I wanted to ask you, Sim, if you found two people that you know, you like, and trust that are keeping you on track. Have you found those two people?
I have. And it's changed over the years. Okay, 5 or 6 years ago, it used to be David Price and Dina Karabek. And I've had retrospectives with them. Recently, just so you know, it's been 2 members here in GCC, and they have not yet said that they want to be exposed. So I'm not actually, I'll ask them whether or not it's okay to say who they are. But right now, yes, I do have that. And in fact,
here's my question, not who they are, but are they knowing, liking, and trusting you and keeping you on track to do your best? Are they doing that for you?
That is what I'm asking them to do very explicitly, yes.
Okay, so whenever people in here are doing things, don't ask us, ask those people. And then, yeah. And are they giving you the feedback that's saying you're doing your best?
It's mixed. I don't want them to give me the feedback that says I'm doing my best. I want them to tell me, how I can improve in certain areas,
That's my question. I'm asking, are they giving you that feedback on how to improve, and are you continually improving?
Yes. That is
here's the other question.
Practice.
That's awesome. So my next question is, do other people in the group have 2 people that they know, like, and trust? And are those 2 people giving the feedback to help that person improve? In other words, are we all improving? Is the real thing for collaborology. Are we all improving, or is anyone stuck? Because I know we created this Sunday for people
while you're
that are
at
stuck.
it, I would really, really like to thank Colin Kilburn and others, but especially Colin Kilburn for being here. He's made me improve myself tremendously, especially in the last 3 months. He will never know how grateful I am. So don't tell him.
There's a meme on the internet I just came across a long time ago, but it resurfaced again this week. It says something like, of all of my spiritual teachers, there's the people that annoy me, and then all other spiritual teachers in all priority, right?
I must say that it's a for people who are truly trying to lean in, even if we don't have the best social skills. What you'll find is that I have looked at the things that Jazzwinder has posted that is directed my way to see, you know, that's how you correct your blindness to get other people's opinions. And same thing with Barry. I've looked at a lot of his work, even though I felt our conversation was misaligned, I still felt his information was very interesting and valuable. So, you know, it takes time to circle around in a spiral to get to where you're going. And along the way, you might realize, well, I don't really align with that person that well. Doesn't mean you should be mean or unfriendly, especially in this place. So yeah, I can appreciate what Jazz is saying about that, and I think we can move forward. There was another point I wanted to make. I think it was related to what Sam was saying, but Jazz kind of punctuated his point and erased the other one. So I think the idea is in whether we are actually leaning in and trying stuff. The extra commitment of saying I'm going to put it on Trello and do some memory, I think is an extra commitment to share with the group. And I guess my question for Sam is, for the two people that he's collaborating with or collaborating with, has he posted any of those things public? And if he has, then why wouldn't he mention their names? I think I know who they are. I don't know if he thinks that this space is a different kind of a public space than the other space that he uses. Like, I'm a bit confused. But I respect him for getting people's permission first, although he typically, I think, is a bit contradicting if he already has and he's just not doing it now. So whatever, doesn't matter. It's just, it sounds kind of hobble-balooey when my point is in the radical transparency of the GCC recording things juxtaposed with Gertrude's Friday show where there is no recording. How do we bring this value forward? I don't think a pile of videos is going to do it, and I don't think keeping it private is going to do it. I think building newsletters and keeping the conversation going with memory is going to do it. And I think that one of the simplest places might be Trello. So I'd like to follow up on that proposal. Go ahead, guys.
Go ahead, Glenn.
No, you can go first, Josh.
Yeah, I was just going to say we could use our shared memory like a newsletter. And one of the things that came out of the unrecorded meeting yesterday, I thought was quite brilliant, and I'll share it like it's a newsletter, is Doug said sometimes we get ready, fire, and then aim. And sometimes we get ready, aim, and then fire. And I thought that was quite brilliant from yesterday, and I'll just bring it into this conversation, is if we're clear and focused and aiming what we want to say in the direction of servicing and collectively helping each other, it'll go a longer way than if we get ready and we fire what we want to say and then try to focus afterwards by bouncing it and sounding boarding it off of each other. Sometimes the two are needed, but just to be clear, if we're aiming together or if we've already aimed and we want to fire, if that makes sense, so that we're helping each other get clarity as opposed to causing confusion and chaos amongst the group. So how we communicate is something I think is really, really important. If we need each other to help to aim, ask that. Say, I'm not quite sure what I'm thinking. I know that I'm on a good track and I know I have a good idea, but I need the sounding board this off of each other. And then saying what you're going to say, as opposed to the just saying it and then getting all the comments. I'm complete.
And I think we need symbology for that, so there's no confusion when someone hands you, please understand me, or could you
I had my hand up.
could you please ask for clarification? I think we could symbolize those.
I had my hand.
Those
I saw your hand,
Josh
Jazzwinder.
He does it again.
He didn't see you. He didn't see you. It's okay.
Yeah, whatever.
I get
whatever.
to claim that.
Keep
I get
going.
to claim that trophy today of being passed over.
I need a leak. And before
I
I
had
go-
something, so go first, Jaswinder.
Thank you. I want to go for a leak. Before I go, I want to just address this putting things down physically. I have a bad right shoulder, and I'm thinking of downloading after a chat with Barry, because he's very nice. He's too nice to be true, really. I need a decent speech to text thingy, so I can then just copy and paste. Otherwise, it hurts. No, and I'm taking pills already. Don't want to take any more pills. Otherwise, I'll rattle. I'm complete.
This is good. Yeah, and I wanted to follow up on this. Are we of service to one another? And Sam said, why isn't this working? Well, first of all, one answer could be it is working when we do that, when we are in that mind space. It seems like a pretty natural mind space to be in when you're connected to those you speak with, you're interested. You just naturally want to be of service, and maybe these conversations is the place to clarify those issues you just mentioned, Josh. Like, well, what is really you want to do, and what is really the direction? What is really my direction? What's really your direction? That this is sort of the, one of the places where that can be more clarified, right? Yeah, Colin, I'm not finished, but can you just briefly shoot in what you had?
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure I get my place in the queue. So when you're done, Glenn, can you point to me? That might be a good way to do it. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the thing that is coming back to something that I mentioned earlier. On the one hand, we have this very simple mindset that we want to be of service to one another. It's clearly beneficial for myself as well as the other to view, whatever they bring as a valuable gift. It's this mindset that there's something valuable in what that person brings, whoever that person is. This is a certain mindset. And I felt that this was what Josh expressed and we will express. It's a mindset that we try to practice here. It's a recipe for a good meeting. It works when we act according to that mindset because it creates a mutual interest. It's a flow of energy that's created. What I wanted to point out also with them is that we just have to be really aware that there's some incredibly powerful forces that act according to a completely opposite worldview. It's the tribalism. I mentioned it earlier, I'm going to mention it again. I know that none of us believe in it. We have seen through it. We have seen through the bullshit of trying to reduce another person to a category, trying to say he's a leftist, he's a rightist, he's a this, he's a that. We can see when we're a little bit clear, we can see just how ridiculous that pattern is. And at the same time, that pattern is proliferating all over social media like a virus. It's far worse than the coronavirus. This is the virus that is crippling humanity. It's been going on for thousands of years. It manifests as reducing another living being to a category. And it has something to do with being hypnotized by words, which I think that Kyra alluded to earlier. And maybe men do it easier than women. That may also be true. But I just really want to point our attention to this. It's a pattern of being hypnotized by concepts, living inside words, and becoming victim to this fraud of reducing other people to a category. And this ruins all our communications. This throws all the service to others out of the window. It throws the service to ourselves out of the window. It throws everything out of the window. It's a sort of a crazy self-replicating pattern that just keeps going. And yeah, there's some people making money from it as well, which is obviously a part of it. But I just really want to point to that pattern of being trapped inside of these conceptions. That seems to be factor number one that prevents this totally obvious, same natural thing, just being in service to one another, just seeing one another, listening, being interested, receiving the gifts, giving the gifts, having this mutual value flow where we can build and build on one another's best things. And if we can be free from this prison, then that possibility is opened up. Yeah, Colin, go ahead. It's your turn.
Yeah, I don't like to interrupt somebody's pregnant pause because it's time to digest.
I was finished. Yeah.
No, that's great. And I also would like to point out that to Jazz, even though he wants to help me with my interruptions, that's notable. But I think we have to come to a little bit of an easement on the fact that sometimes we let people interrupt us a little bit because they might have just something to add, a nugget for understanding, right? Again, that's the good kind of active listening. I got interrupted several times this call. In fact, I was next, I think 3 times in it, and each time I was not giving, like I said, Sam, go ahead if you've got something that's burning right now, because it goes with what the conversation is. And then after that, somebody else went, and then I seem like I'm interrupting, trying to get my turn back. I got kicked out of the shopping line, basically. That happened to me 3 times. So that's not just a minor interruption of just like I was doing. I think I was being kind, offering something. Maybe I think I'm more kind than I actually am as people receive it. I don't know. I hope what I add is valuable. And that kind of is the point. If what I don't have to add is a delusion that I have, and I just don't see it, so I bring up a point, and I even show a video about it and ask the group, can you watch this video? Some people I hope might watch it, or at least tell me why that's been debunked. Josh has done that for me before. Hey, that's not the right thing. That's been debunked. Josh is pretty up on stuff. So, and that's useful. And if we're going to share with each other, I tried to do that. In fact, I already have some work that I've already done. It's not in a final draft of any kind. In fact, it's still in development. And it's the kind of thing, how do I find to bring that up to this group and them tell me that it's important and they'd like to look at it more, right? So I had one of my barn raising days. I showed basically what it was in a half prepared way. It was harder than I thought it was going to be to moderate the group and show it at the same time. And I feel if I would have been more successful, I would have had a second day to actually practice it as opposed to just explaining what it is. So it's a thing, like say a game of Monopoly, here's all the characters and blah, blah, blah. And then next time, why don't we try a little game of Monopoly? Because everybody knows what Monopoly is. Or let's pick a better game. How about a game of Sorry? So anyway, it doesn't really matter. The fact is you explain what it is, and then the next, and if you don't get to actually practice it, so what could I do? Well, I could put more time into it, and I could make a demo. And Barry suggested this about one of the terms that I was trying to clarify with the group about, is the GCC space inviting everybody in a secular way or a non-secular way. And some people are saying, well, forget the word secular altogether. And I'm thinking, well, without the word secular, I might not be welcome. So you know, because I'm an atheist. So, you know, it's to make it invitable to everybody. And I see your hand, Josh, this is one of the things I said, if you want to interrupt, to say something to challenge me, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm just almost done. So do you want to challenge me or further understanding of what I'm saying?
Not so much challenge as much as I just heard very clearly Glenn say, let's not put things into categories. And then I heard you say, is it secular? Is it not secular? So I just want to make sure that Glenn was heard more than anything.
No, I appreciate that, Glenn. And I think that categories come in when you get down to details, because you need to have discernment and distinction. And Barry's very much with that. I've seen him bring it up. And, you know, I think as we get more experience, we realize that there's a lot of serendipity here and individual interests and a group interest. And I am trying to discern the difference between a group project, which would be like video creation, as opposed to journey maps, which I find are personal journey alignments. Okay. And people conversation adapters, which is exactly what the fuck we're talking about today. I don't know how to put them in the right context with the right words. So I'm trying to do that with GCC. I'm saying the space is...
I don't even know what that means. I want clarification.
Clarification on what, Jazz?
People's adapters method.
Yeah, well, this is it. Like, you don't know what my journey maps are either. So I guess I'm piss poor at being able to share my ideas well.
So let's help each other. Yeah, I see Alex's hand is up as well. And I have my hand after that.
You can put the link in the chat to the people's adapter, and then it'll clarify Jasminder's inquiry. But there's also an aspect of collaborology that is web pages, co-created web pages, and they link to the emergence. It's called a GEM, that one. It's called the Global Emergent Movement Phenomenon, GEMP. But that's okay. Over.
Colin, do you mind if I wanted to, before the call ends, just ask Alex, because I know he's using Weebly, and I just found out this week that Weebly has been bought by Square. And I was just wondering, Alex, if that's affected you, if you're okay, how you're doing with your work.
Yeah, I haven't noticed any change.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as the people adapters, it's people conversation adapters. And I guess some of the starting is, like Jazz says, through our difficulties, and we learn much. Working in a silo, we don't learn as much. How to align with people is the challenge, so that you're not talking past one another. You're having the same conversation. So knowing how to approach the conversation or context or topic, I think, is one skill that I need to be more specific with in a group like this, because it's not obvious. Most of the times in my life, it's pretty obvious what slot I'm in when I'm talking. And so the people adapter, I guess an example would be being able to hold up like a sign, if we had agreement, that instead of Josh raising his hand, he rose a U. I mean, I don't understand. Can I ask a quick question? I might say, well, just give me 1 minute because I'm half explained. And then after I add my clarification, but if he says, no, he sticks the U up again, it means he really wants to interrupt for understanding. Or if you had a C, that would be to challenge somebody. I don't think that's true, and I don't think we should continue that fallacy, right? Or just a quick comment for understanding, right? So I think we could have symbols in these people adapters just at the simple level without even knowing personalities. And there's nobody below you for me, Jazz, just so you know.
Oh, Joshua's below me.
That's
And
a
he's
good.
calling for a timeout. He wants to say something.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to say, as far as the way that you want to communicate, Colin, what if you just forked off another conversation in the GCC, create those people adapters, and see if it draws people in, and if there's more conversations, and therefore you're heard, you have your style, and I can come and join that style, as opposed to me sitting there saying, well, I have a style that I'd like to communicate in, and Barry has a style that he'd like you to write it down. and Alex has his style. In other words, the more we fork, the more we allow for possibilities to come. The more we talk at each other and say what we want, that's powering over. What do you think of that, Colin?
I think we are forking in the end. Sam forked off with the two people he's collaborating with, and he doesn't even tell us who they are. So that's a fork, and which is great. That's where, you know, you've made the real triad dyad connection, and you're going to grow a sprout. Bring it back to the GCC. So I guess my first initial was, can we have context of what we're doing and share where we are in our journey, so someone knows I'm a beginner at this, and this is the stuff I've tried. And they give me
Are
another.
there two people here that you'd like to fork off with to start doing that? That's my question.
Well, the thing is what I need to do is a better demo and think of it clearer. Make my own demos. I'm just lazy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm putting time in as much as I'm getting attention back. But in the end, I am doing it on my own because it's a thing I see, and it's the hammer I see. So anyway, but the other thing is, well, once that didn't take adoption, I didn't explain it well enough, and nobody wanted to help work on that in flow. Then I said, well, I think the main problem here is that it's just understanding, miscommunication, and conversation difficulties. So I switched back, and then I realized that, well, I'm thinking that everybody's going to be kind and lean in. Actually, there's a situation where you come into this where people aren't going to. So there's some more adapting that has to happen before you even get into the conversation to get people interested.
Yeah, and but you also need sometimes to just be two people, because some of the stuff you mentioned, Colin and Barry, is really a result of just how many people are in the room, and it's certain kinds of in-depth conversations are very difficult when it's 10 people. I mean, we just have to be realistic about that. It's not that we're not trying to lean in. It's just that,
well,
you know, that's just the nature of a discussion where you have 6-7 people.
Well, I think Josh has it right. He said, well, look, bring what you got into a side channel and we'll see what we got and bring it back. The other way is for me to say, hey, look, I would like to tell you all about this for the 4th or 15th time or whatever, but I would rather, instead of doing that, could I ask your guys' permission to have a special day for doing that? And anybody who's not interested, they don't have to show up. Or if there's very little interest, you know, maybe 1 or 2 people, just do it privately off to the side. And eventually I say, well, look, I guess my idea is really crappy, and I guess I'm just going to, you know, at least I'll know why.
It's not crappy. I mean, I would love to. I would love to help you, or just. I would love to just go into it sometime, and I think it would be good to have like maybe put off like one day for each person, like we talked about before. But
I like that.
We have to be a little organized, you know. We have to just say, okay, that Saturday, Colin's gonna really present his thing, and we're gonna lean into it, and we're gonna give some space to it. What are you thinking, Josh?
I just saw Alex's hand raised. I was wondering if he wanted to say something.
I'm checking out. It's late here and I'm very tired, so I'll get some sleep. But there is definitely an avenue of construction, positive construction around the idea of us collaborating and merging our ideas onto our own individual pages that are linked. Because that's having that code word in the URL is how the AI finds out that we're all doing something. Over.
Thank you, Alex.
I feel complete. Yeah, thanks for coming, Alex, from the other side of the world to me.
Yeah, I gotta leave, guys, but I really enjoyed today, and you know, Colin, I would love to do a one-on-one sometime soon, because we've talked about a few issues, and I think it would be great to look into the game of discernment, and
yes,
if you want to fly a few of these ideas.
Did you get my Trello links? Were you able to get into
Yes, that? Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, I got it. So
I don't know if they time out or not. It's a link you get. It's an invite link that I sent to you specifically. But anyway, and if anybody else wants to get on Trello, I think that's a what you could say, maybe there could be some things that we, in the idea of having structure that we check in with, like we were using Trello. I thought it was a proposal. I thought we agreed to it, and it just kind of died. We had
Yeah, I know. It's often like that, right? But like,
I think we should resurrect it or something like it.
Yeah, definitely.
I got an idea, Colin, if you're open. As far as how to fork the hashtag, if you create your own hashtag that's unique and you start posting that publicly all over the internet and see what kind of gravity you get towards that, that could be a way to help find people that are interested in what you're doing. And also a way, let me just be clear, in web development, when we're grabbing things from social media, if we create an individual unique ID hashtag, we can populate a web page with all of those thoughts. So everything you're ever thinking of that you want to communicate to the whole group, you could hashtag those things in multiple places and have them all collect organically, naturally into your own type of Trello board, if you will.
Well, let me stop you right there, Josh, because I've been just thinking recently about using hashtags and specific node numbers to continue conversations automatically in thought trails that are more organized at a certain level. But anyway, yeah, that's interesting. I always like the idea of submitting ideas by hashtag. Yes, just need to have it.
Yeah, and it's like creating the whole internet is your Trello, is your bulletin board, and it allows for more energy and information to come back to you.
Yeah, personally and within a product, I really like that idea. As far as the group, I think we just need a list of what people are up to and what they want to do.
The group is the entire world.
Well, yes and no, but it's the, I guess, of the regulars to try to get a little focus. And yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, Alex's Trello board could actually be his webpage because it's more produced. Barry has 1,000 Trello boards of his ideas in all the pages that he has on his website. So he could go to Trello and say, hey, I got ideas on that, and link to his website. People could go to the website and link back to the Trello board. It's just a matter of which way you want to be found.
No, now you're going in all different directions. I'm just trying to get clarity and conciseness as opposed to creating more entropy.
Well, you're trying to do it at scale. Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So for example, Barry's got all of his writings from the 90s till now on a specific platform, and he's slowly started moving them to another platform, which, if I'm not mistaken, Barry, I see you putting things on Google Sites. And then Google has its own thing called Google Tag Managers, where if you ask Google, it'll go into all of your writings. The computer will look at all the different things you said and start tagging them with Google Tag Manager of hashtags of all the categories that the computer understands it as. And if we were in service to each other, we could help hashtag it in the hashtags that Barry wants it to be in to help him communicate it all. So if you ask any question and it's part of that hashtag, you can go to Google, ask that question, put in hashtag Barry Court, and it would bring up all the answers of that subject category. And the one thing that I just noticed, most people aren't using Google properly and refining their search. They're just trusting that Google will do that for them, as opposed to clicking on the more button in Google and start refining your search. Because when you do that, you will find anything and everything you could ever imagine on any subject anywhere. And we could do that here at GCC by putting hashtag GCC barn raising, and then it would subcategorize all of those things. So we could have multiple conversations on multiple levels. I'm not trying to ramble, but I'm just saying these things have been worked out.
But this is interesting. I mean, this would be really good to have like a separate barn racing conversation where you could really go into this.
Yeah, Glenn, let me just be more clear. And let me just be clear. If Sam went back to his YouTube channels where he's posted all of these videos and started hashtagging GCC barn raising when he posts to YouTube, as opposed to just pressing post, then anyone could go from anywhere, especially if they were public, which I don't know if
they already are, Josh. They all have tagged GCC and barn raising for all of the barn raising videos I put up on YouTube.
Well, help me, Sam, to find it. So if I type in the hashtag what, will I go to YouTube and find it?
Type in GCC, type in barn raising.
No, is it GCC? Wait, let's be clear. Is it GCC barn raising all one?
I've tagged it both ways. I've tagged it GCC all by itself and also barn raising.
Okay,
So
that doesn't work, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why that doesn't work. There's thousands of
It doesn't
things with the
matter.
word
That's
barn
how
raising.
YouTube
There's
allows
thousands.
it. So you can search for it that way.
Okay, don't get mad at me. I'm not trying to cause
I'm
an
just saying,
argument. I'm
you're
just
saying
trying.
something doesn't get done, and I'm saying you're not aware of what's been done already, Josh.
And I just tested
I
it.
am.
It worked.
Wait. Slow down. Let's just test it to see if it works in service of each other.
Go
I
search
just
for
did it.
GCC.
I did.
Hold
and it
on.
worked.
If I go in and type in GCC, how many other places in the world have the acronym GCC?
No.
A lot. That's why I use multiple tags.
It's there.
Okay, wait. I'm not trying to get. Help me to find it.
But don't criticize if you're not aware of what's going on and what's been done.
Oh, I'm aware. I've been seeing it, and I'm not an asshole, and I'm criticizing
No,
in
you're
the
not.
way
You're
that
not.
it works.
No, but
I'm
I
not
think
trying.
there's something.
Hold on, I'm going to
interesting
YouTube and
Came out
doing it right now.
The GNU C compiler. It's been in Unix, GCC compiler.
Yes, for 40 years. I understand that.
No, it came up the first 5 with GCC barn raising. It come up. I didn't try barn raising alone or GCC alone.
Yes. So it is possible you can do it.
And the first 5 were GCC.
Not
barn.
only that, they're all on a GCC playlist.
Yeah.
But that could be a really interesting subject, though, for a special GCC meeting to really look into tags. How could we use hashtags? Because I think this is a completely new way of organizing information that's very different from our traditional ways of categorizing, using tags. I mean, it's just really interesting in itself.
I'm just curious that solutions are being proposed when you're not even aware of what's already being done. You know?
Yeah, well, maybe it could be done better. I think Jazz had.
Yeah, but listen, don't get mad at me if I'm not aware. Help me to be aware. Like,
No, I've been announcing this for 3 years already.
I know.
And I'm announcing this every time I do it. This is what I get. Do you see?
I'm seeing it. Okay, I'm not moderating
Let's help
right
each
now.
other. Let's
So
help
I'm not
each
moderating.
other.
Look,
Don't get mad at me. Help me. Help you. Help
I
each
think
other.
I get this, guys. I think I get this. GCC is maybe too short. What if we create a hashtag that's completely unique that you're not going to find anywhere on the internet?
That's all I'm saying.
Yes,
Yeah,
and Alex Gagnon has talked about the same thing because he's created unique hashtags for a lot of his art subjects. So the idea is you create an address, which is nobody else has created this address. You just put it out there as a tag, and then if you know that address, then you have all the information collected. I think there's something really interesting here with these hashtags.
Yes, and you're right about being more specific. And I think all the thing here is when Sam came on and said that to Josh, I think what Josh heard Sam say is, I'm done. It's been done. But Josh is saying, well, we need another iteration because there's some refinement that could happen here. Let's have a look at it. And I agree with Josh and Sam both. So there you go. He did it like I did my stuff, but more work can be put into it. How much this isn't my full-time job by any means, but the main thing I'm striving for before the journey maps is understanding, and that's conversation. And that's why I'm talking about and have been interested in John Kelton's conversation community and different ways to point out when people are not helping, especially if it's myself. I want people to help me realize I'm not helping without being violent or negative. Sometimes people get pig-headed and a war is coming up because their worldviews are so far apart and they just can't be kind to each other. Let's not do that here.
Let's not do that. But what we could do is have Josh really have a session, moderate a GCC session where you can go into the possibilities of using these tags. Because I've been using tags in Evernote, and it's a really interesting way of organizing information.
Well, you're saying the same thing again, Glenn, and I totally understand what you're saying, but I've got a list of maybe 10 shows we could have.
If something we've already done here on the GCC has helped us, then why do you want to take it out of the GCC as something we shouldn't be doing and not helping?
You need to be more specific, Jess.
I am.
I didn't
We have
understand
tried
that.
this technique of being very nice to each other and getting nowhere.
We're not
Till we
talking
were
about
succinct.
that.
Till
We're
we
not-
were succinct, till I was succinct and clear and said, you're not helping. You really want to look at yourself first.
What's
Yep,
that got to
that's
do
not a
with
reason.
tags? What's
But,
that
as
got
well,
to do with
hold on,
tags?
it does have
You're
to
just
do with
talking about something else, Jasmine.
No,
We're
he's got
talking about.
Yeah, we are talking about tags, but that we digressed into why don't we put that into a show? Let's not talk about it. Or meditation, why don't we put that into a show? In fact, tell me a little bit about it, but if it's going to be long, why don't
When
we
you say let's not
put it in a
talk
show?
about it, about
If we're talking
anything,
about being friendly, then
yes. But
then
when you
yes.
use the phrase, let's not talk about it, that is not positive, it's not helpful, and it's a trigger.
And we know
hold
that,
on.
so we don't have to spend time on it, right?
The question
Okay.
is
Let's
why?
move on.
Why did the person say it? That's the trigger, not the trigger, the important point. If somebody has an opinion,
Because the person is immature. They can't deal with it.
no, it has to be a specific thing. Like, for example, if we're talking about something like my journey maps again, it would be perfect for someone to say, look, if you got something to say about those, why don't you have a show? Because we've heard enough about it.
No.
If I have something to add, like, oh, I've gone and done a bunch of work and I'm really excited about it, and I just want to give you an update of what I've done with my maps, then I think I should talk about it and it should be interesting. It isn't, I don't know. It's a gamble I
I
take.
think that's out of context to what you said earlier.
It's just respecting time and topics.
Yes, but
Well,
let's
we can
let's
fix
keep
that.
it in context. Don't flip-flop just to save face.
Hey, look,
We
I'm not trying
we
to
can
save face
fix
at all.
that.
I'm not trying to save
Nobody's
face.
accuse you.
Fairly easy to organize it.
You have
Fairly easy to organize it, guys. It's simply we say that day we're gonna cover this subject. Colin, you're gonna moderate that day. You can go through whatever you want. Just Winder, you can go through whatever you want that other day. Josh can have a special day where he can go into the issue of tags. It's simple. Let's do it.
The thing is, Glenn, Glenn, hold on. You are totally right in what you just said. I won't take anything away from that. And usually when we do that, the shows are a lot better when they're focused ahead of time, right? I like that. You like that. I think we can all agree. Somebody's sharing something and we're going to say, hey, you do have the right to go on and talk long because this is about your idea, and expect people to interact with you in the way you like to be interacted with. Again, conversation adapters. What I'm talking about, and I think Jazz is talking about, just in regular talk, how do we understand that what we're saying is not helpful or useful? And if it is, if somebody has an opinion that it isn't. So I do that, Jazz does that. The thing is, for example, recently in the unblocking thread, I was asking for reasons why the word secular is not a good word in the context I was trying to present. I didn't get any specific reasons back other than I don't understand the Habarati, or I'm an idiot, or a bunch of these other things. Like I think Joel told me that you don't understand enough to understand that your question's stupid, or I don't know what he said, but that's the way it felt to me what he said. It was not helpful. It was not a reason why I shouldn't ask that question. It wasn't, it's like telling a kid just go away because
If it wasn't helpful, then just ignore it then.
No, the fact is it ruins the conversation. It ruins the conversation. How can you dismiss
I know,
something?
so let's ignore it then. Let's ignore it then if it ruins the
Okay, let's ignore your conversation then, Glenn. Let's ignore your conversation. Let's ignore your conversation.
Let's focus on what's interesting.
Let's not ignore it.
If it's not interesting, we forget about it. We move on.
Says who and why?
We say it. If it's not
me,
interesting,
I have in service to Sam. I want to be in service. And what I noticed, I just did a little more deeper dive, is that if you type in the word hashtag GCC and you type in the word hashtag barn raising, 3 more come up. If you type in the word hashtag GCC, it comes up everything GCC. If you type in the word hashtag GCC barn raising all in one, it comes up with 1 video. So I'm not judging that Sam is doing his best and putting all the tags so that it can be found. I'm just offering my services as an expert in hashtagging and in web development with social media to help do us better. I am not judging Sam. I'm not saying that he didn't do it right. I'm just saying, can we help each other to do it in a way that we all are enjoying finding everything that we want quickly? That's all I'm saying. And I just
for the record,
that's it.
all the videos that I post do have hashtag barn raising, and in addition, hashtag GCC. So if
Just for the
YouTube
record, it does not, Sam, because
not
I
bringing
just did
it
the
back,
research and it does
that's
not.
a reflection on
You want
YouTube
to argue
search.
with me?
It's not a
It said
reflection
no
of
results.
whether the tag is there. That's a reflection of YouTube search. Okay, just for the record.
No, Sam, you're wrong, actually, and I
No,
got to call
Josh,
you out
you're
on
wrong
that.
because I know what I do to tag this.
So
So
why don't we
you
have
are
why don't we have an
actually
next
why?
fundraising and we'll
by
go
telling
through
me
it
I'm not
together.
doing something that I know I'm doing.
You guys are blocking
You're
each other.
wrong, Sam. I'm telling you right now, you are
No,
wrong.
I'm saying
and I
it's
can
a
show it to
problem
you.
with YouTube search, not a problem with whether or not it's tagged or not.
Can I help you with that problem? Can I
No,
be of
because I
service
don't
to
want
you?
to work with you because you're this way. Okay?
Look,
You're being very difficult and you're telling me I'm not doing something. And so I'm actually giving you facts. Okay?
I
Josh
believe
said
you.
he didn't
I
find it
believe
in
you,
the
Sam.
I
search.
don't feel like working with you. It's that simple.
You didn't find it in
Great.
the search, right?
Yes, yes,
Then
yes.
that's the bottom line. You don't want to work with me, then fine, absolutely fine. But don't yell at me. I didn't do anything wrong to you, Sam. I'm just
Let's
trying to
forget
help.
about this.
Disputed a fact that I actually offered. Okay?
Sam, you're getting really angry, and I don't understand why. Can you tell me why you're so angry?
I understand why he's angry.
Okay. You have come many times offering to help without really understanding that something's already either being done or that we haven't identified the problem or that you have a solution that you want everybody else to use without really adequately exploring the problem space first.
That's
that
an
has happened
assumption.
multiple times.
That's an assumption. That's
No,
an
it's
assumption
actually
that I
happened.
didn't
It's on
explore.
record. It's on record. Okay.
Show
So
me.
for this final time, I'm just saying you're again telling me that I'm not doing something which I know I'm doing. Okay.
I
And whether or not
just
it
checked.
works
Wait, stop,
is a
stop. Time out.
YouTube
Time
issue.
out.
It's not whether or not the hashtag has been provided. Okay, and I can go through all of these hundreds of video records. I can share my screen. I can show you all the tags that have been assigned to each of these videos. So if YouTube is not bringing them back, that's a YouTube problem. And I said that very easily, but you disputed that. Okay, that's why I'm saying you're now contradicting what I'm telling you is a fact. And if that's what you want to do to collaborate, then I don't feel like collaborating with you. It's that simple.
I'd like to hear his answer to this because I think I understood what you said, Sam. You've written the tags, okay? Why aren't the tags found in the search? What's your answer, Josh? What were we gonna say?
That's exactly what I'm trying to find out together. Not telling you that I'm right and you're wrong. I'm just trying to find
I
it out
wasn't
together.
doing it, okay? And that's what I objected to.
I apologize.
I was telling you that it was a YouTube search problem.
Yeah, he misspoke that. He apologized for that already.
Sam, I'm telling you from what I'm seeing on my end, it looks as if you're not doing that. I'm not telling you you're not doing it.
I did not dispute that. I said it was a YouTube search problem.
I bet you.
Can I help you with the YouTube search problem so that it's not a problem?
With this attitude, no, I don't feel like it. Okay,
Well, it's
if
not
attitude changes, maybe. Okay,
that brings me back to my next.
It's not an attitude, Sam.
That is.
You misunderstood him, okay?
Yeah, no.
Josh said that on his end, when he wrote in the hashtags, he didn't get up all those videos. That's what Josh said. It's not a negative attitude.
Really
He
accept
said a
that.
fact.
But then he further said I wasn't tagging them, and I said I was. Okay,
I know
Okay,
that, but that's been
back.
cleared up. That's been cleared up.
Working.
That's been cleared up. That's cleared up.
Yeah, and this brings me back to my point that if what Josh is saying isn't interesting, then we could say, look, Josh, what you're saying isn't interesting. But actually what Josh said is so interesting, we want to dedicate a show to it. Now, here's the further point. If there is a personality problem where the people conversation adapter won't help, then this kind of happens where people are fighting it back and forth. Then you get into a position where someone like Sam will say, even if you have a piece of gold, I don't want it because your money's not any good here. That's a bit violent, but let's
move past that, please. Come on, guys.
It is violent. It's
Look
very.
here. We can
very,
move past that bullshit.
No,
okay?
that's true.
Joshua has some specific ideas about how this issue can be addressed.
That's not a question.
So how can it? That is the question.
No, that is a question.
How can the hashtags be used in a way that actually shows up in the Google search.
How can we
That's
do it
the
without
issue.
Sam's help is the question, because Sam's not, if we go with Josh, Sam isn't going to join in. And that's my point. Even
He's
if
already joined in. He's
Hold on,
already
hold on, hold on.
tagged them videos.
I'm not, this isn't absolutes, Glenn. Just relax. I'm not saying like history. I'm saying there comes a time when somebody's personality ruins it. So therefore, even if they do have something value to give, the other person isn't interested. I'll go do it myself if I need.
Yes, but that's the old bullshit paradigm. We don't have to play that game, okay?
Well,
Let's move on.
That's Sam's choice.
Josh,
That's
we
Sam's
don't
choice.
have to do that. What is Josh gonna tell us? He has an idea about how to use the hashtag.
And I'm
so you
talking
can
about people
find them.
adapters. You want to talk about what he wants to do, which I think is another show, or we could talk about it now, is fine. But I'm saying that the greater point for conversation adapters is realizing that someone can say, you do have a good idea, it might work, and I'm not going to tell you whether it's good or bad because I don't even want to work with you. Now that's a scenario that we don't
We've
want.
already covered all that stuff.
Can I speak, please?
Let's move on, please.
I offended Sam by saying you didn't do something, and I'm sorry for that because I didn't mean it that way. What I meant to say, and I didn't say it correctly, and I apologize, and I will apologize again and over, Sam, because that's not what I meant. What I meant was when I look at it on my end and I click the button to see the hashtags, they're not there. So I'm not seeing them. I'm not
And I
saying
didn't
you're
dispute
not
that.
putting them there.
I did not dispute that. I was only telling you that I did add the hashtag. And if you want, I can share my screen. I can show you all those hundreds of videos and what hashtags were assigned. So if it's a problem with YouTube search, I completely said, let's look there. Maybe that's the problem. What I objected to is you coming back and saying, no, you didn't do it. That is what is violent, okay?
I apologize.
You contradict something I actually know factually that I'm doing.
I believe you, Sam.
And how can we figure that out without all the emotion? That's my question.
I stated it
Figured
clearly
it out
first,
when Josh
but
just
the
apologized.
contradiction came back strongly, okay?
Yes, but this has
And
been
it came
cleared
back
up.
strongly, and that's why I came back strongly.
You didn't need to, though, because I don't think Josh was really that trying to teach you or school.
Josh was insistent that I was not doing something that I knew I was doing, okay?
Apologize. Can we share a
I
screen?
don't think he was
Can we just wait? Can we just cut this out of taking forever? Just share a screen, show me, let's look at it together, and then we can help each other. I'm not here to hurt. I don't have any intention of powering over or tell you you're wrong. I don't have that intention, Sam.
This
I really
has been
don't.
cleared
Okay,
up.
I accept that. That's why as soon as you acknowledge that, I'm calm. I'm done, okay? So let me just go share my screen.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that the thing that I heard that you didn't hear, Sam, is that even though he misspoke and you had to tell him that you misspoke, was that Josh is talking about an iteration on the idea where you did do it to a certain level of quality. YouTube search makes it a little difficult, but I think if you put the GCC, barn raising, and the date, you'd get any one of them. But that's just my idea. YouTube doesn't.
Okay, are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so let me click on one. Let me click on this one, for example. And let me go to edit video. So come down here to tags. Okay, you'll see that under tags, GCC, barn raising, BRFL, Agile Decision Making Framework, those are all tags that have been assigned, okay? Now, let me go to another one, okay? Let me go to another one.
Is the date not in there? That might help.
Well, if you want to go back to the date, yes, we can look at that also, but let me go down here.
And that's what it's all about, iterations to make it better. I don't think, if Josh was
saying, hang on one second, the recording date, see 10/17, here we go, okay? So the recording date is there and the tags are there, okay? So let me go to another one. Let's go to.
Can I pause you for a second, Sam? I think I see the problem if you're open.
Wait, hang on one second. Wait, what's going on here? Show more. I just want to show you that I'm actually trying to be good and careful.
I see it. I see it, Sam.
Okay. So
I see it.
GCC and barn raising, BRFL, the date, October 10th. Okay. This is there. Okay.
In one format. But I think the question is, do you realize that?
Wait, Colin, please, Colin. Yeah, we need to, please, just
I
let's
just
try
want
to help each
Sam
other.
to realize that it seems to me that he's not realizing that you're here to help, not criticize so much.
That has been
Because-
realized. Okay, come on, let's.
We're
move
past
on.
that. We're past that already. Okay.
We're past that.
I just
Move on.
wanted to respond to the actual direct contradiction, and that is now in the past.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much. And I see where the problem is. If you go back to the page outside of the editing,
Yeah.
and if you go to the main page where you can search for videos,
Which one?
I see what you're.
By the way, these three are private because I haven't announced them yet, but most of these are unlisted or public. You can see down here, okay? So they're actually searchable.
Yeah, can I just acknowledge what a great job you're doing? And I'm just here to help. Like, can I just really acknowledge that? I see that you're putting it there, but then from my perspective, when I'm searching on YouTube, I'm not seeing it. So if we can solve that problem, the disconnect is solved.
So let me actually give you two more data points, okay? There are two playlists that I manage, okay? One is called GCC Public, and that's only been public since I think we stated, I think about a year ago, that we were going to make everything public, okay? So that only has the sessions from when we made that decision, okay? Where is that? That's GCC playlists here. And where is that? Where is that? How come I gotta go scroll my, can I search my playlist here? YouTube
mind if I offer,
actually is not very good, but
can I offer a test, Sam? Do you mind if I offer something?
Well, let me finish my point. My point is there is a playlist on YouTube with all of my GCC videos ever since October 2017, okay? And that's got everything. Then there is a GCC public playlist that has the stuff only since we decided to go public. Now, I've published those lists before. I can do it again. But if you have those, every one of the videos that I post, I've added to those playlists. So you can actually find it that way as well. Okay?
I understand.
All right.
And just a way to look at it from each other's perspective, if you went to your browser, are you on the Chrome browser?
It's a Chrome clone called Brave.
Okay. Do you have the incognito window on the browser?
I do not use incognito.
Do you have that option?
I think Brave does have that option, yes.
Okay. If you went to the incognito window and you went to YouTube and type in one of the hashtags that you used, is it bringing up the videos that are in the public playlist?
Hey, Josh, I completely accept you. I'm not even going to question that, okay? There's no reason for me to question what you found. I don't need to do this. I accept what you said completely.
So the disconnect is you're putting in the hashtag in the back end of the video, and when someone is searching, it's not coming up. Is that what you're saying?
That's why I said it's a YouTube search problem.
Can I help you fix that YouTube search problem?
Sure. What do you need to do? What do I need to do?
Sure. Inside of the notes area, not in the tags area, can you put hashtag in the notes area?
Let's see. You mean in the original description of the actual video, right?
Yeah, if you want to share your screen again, we can take a look at it.
Hang on one second. Let me go there. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm clicking on one here. And you're saying in this description, I need to put the tag rather than down here, you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying
put the tag.
Both.
Let's see, where is this one right here? Where is it? Yeah, see, I put the tag right here where it says tags, right? So you would think that that would be sufficient, right?
Correct.
If you're saying it needs to be here in the description.
Correct.
Well, that's a YouTube problem. Yeah.
It is.
I just realized I'm finding them because I'm searching by title.
So can you search by tag then, and are you finding them?
Yeah, and I would love to help each other, meaning I would never expect you, Sam, to do all this work because we have other people in bar raising, and this is a great collaboration project. If you want to unshare your screen so the other thing doesn't pop up, I'm just trying to be sensitive to your, to help each other. in creating a place where we can collaborate and help each other, because it is a lot of work tagging, describing, and doing that. And that will help more people be able to enjoy these conversations later. I just think it would be such a benefit to our group and to the GCC and to everything we're trying to do.
May I respond to that one?
Please.
Okay. So after the video had been posted, I created a document. Okay. So the video is added to 2 very specific playlists. Okay. And in addition, it's announced to the Facebook GCC group. Okay. So there's a number of ways you can actually get them if you really want it. Okay. Now, separately, the Google Doc is in a shared folder in Google Drive. And that also has been shared. And so I always associate the video and the doc. The doc points to the video points to the doc. So either way you can get to the other one. So there's a number of ways you can get at this. So accessibility to me doesn't appear to be the problem. The problem is whether or not people want to collaborate and actually want to add their thoughts and add their comments and edit the transcript or edit the actual speaker identification information or add any other value. But to actually make it more searchable, I've done what I could to try and make it accessible. Maybe not searchable by Facebook, but if you've got these playlists, they are accessible. It's also in another Google spreadsheet that's got every single one of them with links to every single one of them, along with its update status. Okay? So to me, the problem, if you really want to collaborate, is add to the content, edit the content, add the speakers, add the links to other thoughts, add action items, whatever. But the accessibility, if it's a YouTube problem, we've actually gone on and on about that already, okay? I've made 4 different ways that you can actually get at these videos. So I don't think we need a 5th, so long as, they're already accessible. In my mind, it's more valuable if you're going to spend any time to actually get more content into these documents and edit those contents and add speaker identification, create blogs, create summaries, create gems, that sort of thing. Okay, done, over.
I hear you loud and clear, Sam.
And thank you guys for that. That was very soul satisfying if it wasn't a bit turbulent. I think that's kind of it. Although I do wonder if Sam has spoken about some things about Josh that, it sounded like he belittled Josh quite a bit, where I don't feel that was completely, I know.
I don't feel, wait, let me speak for myself. I don't feel belittled at all.
Look, I'm on record. I'm willing to come across like an asshole. Hopefully, weeks from now, I'll be less of an asshole, but I'm on the record, okay? I understand that.
But I'm also on the record, Sam, of saying I know, like, and trust you, and I know my personality rubs you the wrong way, and it has a lot to do, and I'm just going to be straight up honest, with your 40 years of working your ass off and understanding all these things, and here comes YouTube changing all the things that are supposed to work the way that they're meant to, which is the word tag, and it doesn't. And I'm coming in with 23 years of experience saying, oh, fuck, all my clients have the same problem. Can I fix that problem? And I sound like a know-it-all and I sound like an asshole. And I don't mean to come off that way. I just want you to really know, same thing happened when I introduced WordPress 3 years ago. And Glenn and I were going in and tagging everyone and it was working and we were doing the job and other people tried to go in and it didn't work for them. It is a frustration, and I feel your frustration and especially your expertise. And I'm getting that now with the new generation of technologists coming in, doing things that I'm like, hey, I've been doing this for 15 years. It's not working for me. And someone else is like, yeah, well, I just press a button and it worked perfectly. What's your problem, old man? So if we can solve that problem and help each other, we would go a long way. I hope that makes sense.
So let me just ask one clarifying question, okay? Colin, you said something like, if you search by tag instead of search by title, are you able to find these barn raising videos?
I don't know. I'll put some time into that a little later, Sam, and see. Like, this is actually my first proposal, and I've got a little bit bigger proposal than actually just tagging the videos. That would be a subset. I was there with Glenn and Josh in that meeting with Tammy, and I saw a lot of that stuff, and it was, I guess it's just a shame we didn't get farther than we did, because we can. Now, I've written Python scripts, and I even went in and wrote Google scripts to take Sam's spreadsheet to grab all the HTTPs so I didn't have to go cut, paste, cut, paste, cut, paste. And then I made another spreadsheet, and then I went in and built a Python script to grab and download all the videos with their transcripts and CSV. And I started to collaborate with Sam on that stuff, but I think he got busy. I don't know if also word clouds. I went out and grabbed and I was building word clouds too. So, you know, and we were talking about that way back. So it's unfortunate, but if we prioritize and actually try to find the tools that will adapt these conversations to a higher level, that would be wonderful. And I just think if you plan on doing something, could you write it in Trello or someplace? And that way we'll have a little bit of a memory, because my maps are fine, but they're more for real-time exploring and saying, what the hell was that command I used? Like, if you saw some of my technology maps, you'd say, this guy is, where the hell is he going with this stuff? Like Java, JavaScript, Python. It's like weird eccentric commands to increase the hard drive on, you know, virtual box. Just stuff you need to do to get that thing working.
Anyway, guys, I'm logging off, but I'd love to
sorry,
learn more. Would love
ahead,
to learn more about this later.
Yeah, so
yeah, great meeting today.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. I
Can I
guess
say just one more thing?
Overall, I just like to get the proposals that we want to bring in that Sam's trying to. I feel like Sam's made an inbox for proposals, and I don't think we've all found our way to the inbox yet. So that
We have to make an agreement about where the inbox could be if we want a single inbox.
I think it's
I'm
right
not clear that we need a single
right
inbox.
here. Yeah, I think it's right here. It's just a matter of making a Trello card or something. It just make it become a thing more than a thought.
Just FYI, there is a group folder in the GCC public folder that has all the how-tos and / agreements that I've proposed, okay? I'm not saying you have to use it, but there is a place with at least a dozen, if not more, other agreements and how-tos there already. Let me just say one more thing about here, okay? Since I've been posting these videos all the way back to September of 2017, I had to devise certain conventions. And so I'm not arguing that those are the best conventions. I just had to evolve them as I learned how to do them, okay? And nobody was searching on YouTube videos ever, okay? So I never got anybody to come back and say, hey, I'm not finding your videos, okay? Now, I have tagged more of the recent ones. I can't necessarily say that I tagged any of the ones in 2017 or maybe even 2018, okay? I'm just saying the practice evolves. And so even early on, it didn't allow me to put the actual date of the video, although I think I did go back and try and do as much as I could. So none of this is best practice. I'm just saying it evolved with whatever time and availability and understanding I had, and quite frankly, degree of appropriateness given the interest. Now, if there's more interest, we can do better. I'm all for doing better, but I'm all for doing better if you understand what's being done. But to criticize something that is being done and assume it's not being done, you know, I think is not the right place to start. And so I'm just trying to clarify what has been done so that we can improve from there rather from a misconception of what's been done. Okay, I'm done.
Awesome. And maybe in another barn raising session, I want to let you go and take care of what you need to take care of, Sam. But in another barn raising session, we can open up a shared screen, see what's been done, then go around the room and say, does anyone have suggestions on ways to do it better?
I'm completely open to that.
Awesome. Sorry for any kind of no, you didn't, because I'm seeing it, just so you know, I'm seeing it on my end that I don't see it.
If it weren't so direct, I would not have been so reactive.
Yeah, it's my fault. I apologize. I can learn better, and thank you, Sam, for helping me to learn better, because what I meant to say is you didn't put it in the description, not that you didn't put the tags in, is what I meant to say. And I'm sorry for that.
Got it. I've been trying to do good. I've been trying to put it in where it says tag, I put the tag, right? You know, sorry for not knowing that I'm not supposed to put the tag where the tag is, okay? Okay.
Now, as far as Jazz saying that could have been said in 22 words instead of all Colin's rambling, that's what that felt like to me too. But that's the way it goes, like when emotions flow. And I was really proud that.
Well, Barry, what do you think of all that? You're sitting there mute and thoroughly bored. Your chin's dropping.
I only caught about half of those words because you're a little bit muddy sound. Can you lean in and say that again, closer to the mic so I can get all the
I'd
words?
like to hear your thoughts on the last hour and a half, and if we can achieve any improvements on any of that would be most helpful.
Well, it would take me a while to find the diplomatic language to describe
We don't want diplomacy, we want improvement.
improvements. Well, when I guess Glenn is gone now. When Glenn was beginning, however many hours ago that was, he was talking about the same thing that I had been thinking about in the last week or so, actually longer than that. But with respect to this particular group, it was bringing my thoughts to a focus.
Name of thing?
Sorry?
The name of the thing you were thinking about that Glenn
Yeah,
was-
I'm about to say what that is. My brother had called me this morning, as he often does on weekends, and I was reminded of something that he and I observed when we were children in Omaha, and that was something that that he and I are very different about. Our grandfather and two of our uncles loved to argue. Whenever they would get together, my grandfather would pick a point and argue it, and then Uncle Meyer would automatically choose the opposite point and argue back. And these three brothers-in-law, whatever they were, uncles and grandfathers, they loved to argue. That was their pleasure. That was their enjoyment. That was their entertainment, was arguing. And it didn't matter which side they were on. One would take the opposite side and they would simply argue. My brother actually admired that, and he likes to argue. Did you want to say something, Jazz?
May I interject and say, this is my observation of the empirical evidence that the lower working class person to probably the middle working class, blue collar, maybe white collar as well, enjoy the same occupation, come home, something to eat, go down the bar, couple of beers, sing song, argument, berate each other. They don't have much knowledge, so they get personal insults and they laugh it off. Go home, hit the wife over the head with the empty beer bottle, a quick shag, sleep, and repeat the next day.
Yeah, rinse, lather, repeat. Now, my father was a
But
scientist.
these people I'm talking about, the salt of the earth, I make no apology for interrupting, today are the children of the children of the children, at least 3 times. And they no longer have British Steel or US Steel or GKN Sankey or whatever tool company next door. They're all gone abroad. And they've made it their business to learn on the net. They may not have the degrees, but they have the knowledge. And they're asking, why are we being left behind? But they're not asking as sweetly as that. They're saying, why the fuck did I know that? Why don't you tell me things? You don't consult me, even if the consultations happen. They don't know they're happening because it's not under their nose. There is an information deficit. That's why people like me, who have taken the trouble of looking back and trying to communicate at those levels and try and teach at those levels, are of the same opinion. We've left them behind in a void, and they still don't know. So they come onto social media, and they're doing the same thing that they did in the pubs, because they can't go to the pub. And if we are going to correct their skid, we have to go in the same vehicle and take charge of that vehicle. That ain't easy. Telling somebody, you're not steering that the right way, dear. Say, what the fuck are you doing, boy? Get away.
Josh, I think, a much better listener than I am. That's probably true for everybody. Can you do me a favor? Can you summarize what Jazz just said?
Yeah, I could. I won't, but I could.
Okay, because unless somebody who's a very good listener and an active listener can summarize what Jazz just said, I don't know what he just said.
I believe, go ahead, Jess.
I said to
try again.
communicate with the, you want to go, Colin?
No, I'm saying I'm encouraging, please. Yes, go again.
To communicate with the lower ranks of our working class English speaking comrades, colleagues, etc., we are going to have to use their dialogue, their everyday dialogue. That's all they understand. Not legalese, not scientific, not educated. You know, the stuff that you use when you're half-cocked.
Then I have to
Not
bow
really
out
quick.
because I don't speak that language. I don't communicate in that language. And I simply have to bow out of that culture. I don't belong in that culture. I don't function in that culture. I don't give and take in that culture. I'm an alien in that culture. So I leave.
Hopefully, Barry. Hopefully, Barry.
$2,005.
I just wanted to say, hopefully, Barry,
2005.
that's where the people adapters would help you be able to reach those people without changing who you are.
Yeah. It
You
will
know,
change who you are. 2005, I was very polite. I wouldn't join conversations. I would listen in and get a word in sideways, and I was getting nowhere. Nobody was listening to me because they had been there and they're still there at every rank, and they're still there. They don't need anybody. They're quite happy. Their bread is buttered on umpteen sides. They don't need us. We need them. Yes, John.
Yeah, it reminds me of the mathematics that Isaac Newton was doing to understand physics and
You can't use that
Principia.
word. You
Which
can't
word?
use those two words, Newton and physics. Nobody knows what they are.
I know what
Yeah,
they
no-
are. I know exactly what he's talking
You
about.
can't even use Newton meters.
So what Josh Winter's doing is he's busting my balls. And so in this dialogue we're talking about at the bar, it's called busting balls.
Yeah.
He's busting my balls, and I love it because that's one of the languages I grew up with is ball busting in Boston. It was a constant ball busting, and then I learned to hone my skills in New York. And the way we language with each other, whether it be the language of mathematics, the language of ball busting, the language of satire, of comedy, of puns, like the language that you use, Barry, with taking melodies of songs and interweaving them with beautiful words of meaning into the melodies is a beautiful language. And we all get to learn these languaging. I language something to Sam that really triggered him because I said, you did not do that. And it pissed him the fuck off because he did do that. So how dare this asshole Josh come and tell him that he didn't do that? How fucking dare you tell me that you didn't do that? And it's funny because me and Sam are so similar. He does the same thing to me and I get pissed off. How dare you, Sam, tell me that I didn't do that? And so we're both making assumptions, which is the 4 agreements.
I heard more than that.
Well, the point being is that when you talk at someone versus to them, it's a different conversation. And I'm trying to get better at talking to people, which is why I'm here at the GCC.
Bingo. People talk at, my mother used to talk at me for 30 minutes on Sundays when I'd call her up. She'd talk at me for 30 minutes. I didn't get a clue what she was talking about. And my dad would get on and say, Barry, I just want to say I love you. And then he'd get off. My mother would talk at me for 30 minutes. So, by the way, I did have one thing that I wanted to have some closure on. And this is, being a scientist, I tend to work from forming a hypothesis and then doing some kind of an experiment, as it were, to see if the prediction comes true or not. And I actually did that last week and involved a number of people here. I made a suggestion to Jazz, which he told me he followed up on. And then I said, I would like to know, what the outcome is, but I'm going to predict that the outcome will be nothing came of it. So I want to know from Jazz, was my prediction correct? Nothing came of it.
I watched the video. I liked it.
Yeah, but I asked you to delegate a task that you couldn't do.
Instructions that Colin should do some work with it and forward it to you. Colin has failed that task, yes.
Yeah. See, did you guys notice the little slide that I put up with Miss Sweetie Poo?
Yeah,
Now, you know who Miss Sweetie Poo is, Jazz, because you saw the video.
yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't know if the other people here are familiar with here in Boston.
Hold on, before you go. I did see some booty boo, and I knew that from the teasing or negative feedback I was getting on I think that's the first time I saw it from the Sunday unblocking. Basically, I ignored it all because I think if you got something to tell me, if you're man enough, you could tell me. But go ahead, play your game. I could be wrong, and I apologize.
My game was to make a prediction based on a hypothesis, and the prediction came true, so the hypothesis is accurate. It's a game of science. And also that the objective of the exercise, that is there's a top level and then there's a, what do you call it, the sub level.
Yeah.
The sub level I thought would be educational, but I didn't think it would happen, and it didn't happen.
No.
And it wasn't educational. It was a failure. I predicted a failure, and the prediction came true.
Well, the failure, if we look at it logically, is on the part of the teacher, especially if we ascertain that that method is going to fail. And I'm pretty sure we know the reason why.
What do you think the reason is why that it failed? What do you think is the reason?
We're affronting the other guy.
I apologize. I've got to go, guys. I'm saying goodbye.
Okay.
Thank you.
You thought it was effrontery to show
See you, Josh.
Hey, Josh, before you leave, Josh,
Yeah,
I just
I'm here.
sent around 3 screenshots of YouTube. I searched for hashtag GCC and hashtag barn raising, and the first 3 pages are all just GCC barn raising videos.
And
Just FYI.
did you do
I
it
sent that to
from,
all of you here in this Facebook Messenger group, okay?
try to get it incognito, because that doesn't know who you are.
Thank you for doing that, Sam. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, and let's just continue to help each other. That's all I can say. Is
Okay, I just wanted to share what I found out when I did that search, okay?
Yeah, and I just want to say to you, Sam, if I ever say something, you didn't do something and you know you did it, I didn't mean it, you didn't do it. I'm just literally trying to ascertain. I have a little bit of Asperger's and I've been in computers for 23 years. So I often come off like,
Well, I said, once you acknowledge it, it's in the past, okay?
Okay, but I'm just saying, if I ever do that again, let me know and say, well, you know what? I believe I did do that. Let's take a look together. If we just change that wording to,
I'll go
hey,
back
you know
and
what?
review
You're
the
not seeing
video and
it.
see how quickly I escalated and got reactive, okay?
Yeah, I'm just saying in the future, if we just look at it together, it usually gets solved. We've had that in the past where we look at it together. Oh, okay, I'm seeing it this way. You're seeing it that way. It's like the guy that has a hat on one side is yellow, the other side's green. And we're both arguing, no, it's yellow. And I'm like, it's fucking green, dude. It's green. And I'm on the other perspective. So if we look at it from the same perspective, yeah.
You're right. You're right. How come they're both right? You're right too. You know, it's a
exactly
rabbi joke. You're all right. Including the guy who says, how can they both be right if they're on opposite sides?
Too much black and white. Too much black and white.
I respect you, Sam, because you're so brilliant. I just want you to know that I respect your brilliance and I appreciate your time.
Don't need to do that now.
I'm telling you the truth. You're brilliant, and I could learn so much from you. And I hope vice versa, I can share what I've learned so that we both are even more brilliant.
Let's get there.
Thank you.
I'm just afraid in anger people miss the nuance, and yeah, too much black and white. That's all. That's what I saw.
You guys feeling like wrapping up? It's close on 4 hours now.
Yeah, everything that I wanted to say that I didn't get a word in edgewise is in the chat. So if you remember to save the chat, and if you care, if you have even an iota of interest, and you may not have an iota of interest, if you have even an iota of interest, it's in the chat.
Barry, every single document that I create associated with a video has the in-session notes.
Okay.
If I'm in it, I've got the in-session notes and I put it into that document, okay? FYI.
Yeah, but if I'm going to read it now, it'd probably be more pertinent than to wait for the delay. It does kind of, out of sight, out of mind happens quick here. And so that's why I like the idea of harvesting. But anyway, thanks, Sam. And good luck with your upcoming meeting.
Let me save. Let me make sure I save it before you shut it down. Save chat. There we go.
Yeah, I see. Okay, guys. Have a good rest of your day. Hope you're feeling better, Jazz, with your shoulder.
Okay, bye for now. Shutting down in 3, 2, 1, 0.